right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Philosopher King, episode 26. Before I get into who our special guest is this evening, which I've already teased this morning on Cup of Jonah, just a reminder, we are talking about, this morning we read a little piece about whether or not there is evil in God, and did he create evil? Like, how does evil exist if he didn't create it? So, good questions, right? So check out Cup of Jonah. For more in that Summa Contra Gentiles book that we've been working our way through. Also, obviously, make sure you go to phoneboothpodcast.substack.com for all of the many podcasts there, not the least of which is Mind of Madness by our special guest this evening, Tepler. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining me.
What's up, homie? How's it going, buddy?
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Well, man, I've been wanting to have you back on the show for a while. You were one of my first guests, if not my first. Were you the first?
I think I was. Yeah,
I think you were. Well,
yeah,
the first episode was just
them.
Yeah. I think the first episode was just me introducing the show, and then the second episode
was as far as the guest
was you.
Yeah. I think that's how it went. And then with Snoop, somehow I managed something very similar. It was like the first guest thing too, so it's awesome.
I love it. There you go. The firstborn amongst the podcasts. No, I was kidding.
Yeah. Right in the family.
I love it. No, so I really appreciate it. So you want to plug a little bit and share kind of what you're working on with your podcast right now before we kind of jump into some of the topics we talked about?
Nah, because I'm black pilling right now. You know, I'm ODing on black pills, to be honest with you. It's really hard to even like post on things, and I'm just very skeptical of like personalities or agendas online. You know, like I don't feel like a lot of people necessarily want to get out the truth, or that there's not a reason behind it. So it's kind of like I want to also step back, because more people kind of reveal themselves as time goes on. And I think this is an important time to know who you can kind of rely on and trust, and who might sell you out for some clicks or access or bad information.
Doesn't it feel that way, though? It feels like we're living in a very important time right now.
Mm-hmm. It 100%, dude. And that's why it's sombering, because all my life being a conspiracy theorist and, you know, saying, hey, this guy's going to be falling, and like here we are, and there's no glory. It's not like it's like, oh, I told you so. Now it's like, look where we are. I don't know how we get out of this. I don't, you know, like we have to work through the process, basically. And I believe in end times, and I believe in biblical end times, you know, through Jesus Christ. So that's my guide through, and I just got to kind of go with that. That's where we're at, in my opinion.
No, I fully agree with you, as you know. So I want to kind of comment a little bit on your statement of black pills, because I know like that's something that, I mean, you know, it's no secret Vince has kind of pushed back on me a few times about like by me saying, hey, be careful about your allegiance to this man who's selling us out to the AI technocracy, you know, called Daddy Trump. You know, be careful of the direction he's taking us. He may not be the unsung hero that you believe he is, right?
Right.
And he's like, well, what's the alternative? Are you just going to black pill? I'm like, well, no, actually. Like, I don't think a Christian can black pill, in the sense that we know how the story ends. We know it's going to get bleak by Revelation. We know that it's going to get where no man on earth can buy or sell without the mark.
Yep.
But then we know that our king will triumph.
Yep.
And so, like, in terms of blackpilling, I never feel a risk of that. Although, yes, there is, like, the emotions of seeing everything happen, and all of that is obviously the journey. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what you meant more than, like, an absolute black pill.
Yeah. No. That is the black pill, because it's like, see, now here it is. You know, it's like nothing can fix it. Now we have to go through the process, right? But now we're there, and you don't want to see it there, because that's a bad place to be, right? That's why it's the end times. So in my view, you know, like, but you also want to be there because that brings about the second. But the Bible says don't yearn for that, right? Like, you don't want that to be there. which can bring into another thing.
Well, and a very sombering thing about that Scripture says is that the Lord will cut short the tribulation, lest even those that are predestined should lose their faith. So obviously, the deception or the trials of that time, which we may be on the cusp of, I believe we might be. Let me state that a little less wimpily. I believe we are very close to that final period. But so yeah, to have I think it would be presumption to say, oh yeah, bring on the most difficult times in human history. Yeah,
Right, right.
because I don't want to presume that I will have the courage or the fortitude or the strength to remain faithful through it.
Right. And plus there's everybody else too, right? Like those burdens are going to be on everybody, ourselves included, right? And this is a team sport. It's all about souls, you know. But what's interesting is I was thinking about this because, you know, some people will say that this is being like prophecy is being artificially fulfilled, right? Like people are artificially trying to force things together to create the conditions to bring about prophecy, right? And then that brings up the question of, so does that do the trick, or you know? And I'd given that a lot of thought, and it brought me back to in the Bible. I think it was like Cyrus, right? Like his grandfather got the prophecy saying like he would be usurped by his grandson, and he had that foreknowledge, and he tried everything under the books to prevent it, but it was his own attempts to undo it which actually brought it about.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect thing. So it's like, you know, are we dealing with something similar like that? Because at the same point, dude, you know, like you can't loophole God, right? There's not a trick in there, right? There's nothing you could. So it's like the anticipation would be built in there. Oh, you think you're clever doing this? Well, I've already, you know.
Well, and I think that the greatest misconception about Christianity, I mean, there are many, but one of the greatest, I think, is from those on the outside thinking that Christianity is a series of hoops you have to jump through, and that's it. You have to do this, you have to do that, you have to do this. When the reality is it's an invitation to a relationship. When you understand the importance of free will, and that's something we talked about this morning on Cup of Jonah, like the importance of free will. It was free will is so valued by God. And what's the result of free will? Love. A free choice for something or someone is love. So the power of love and free will is so important that God was willing and saw it as a net gain, as a better outcome, to give everyone free will, understanding all of the evils that we're seeing being revealed today, having been done. And all the evils of the fallen angels and all fallen, like, that's incredible to think about.
Yeah, no, that's a beautiful way to put it too, you know? Like it's interesting when, you know, you look back at it. What I find discouraging is usually a lot of people will be like they seem to attack Christianity very easily, right? And I find that they do that with like very very little information, right? They don't seem to be well informed on their Bible. They don't seem to be well informed on the faith, but they seem to be real like, oh, you believe in this, so I'm just, you know, like, not so fast, Pancho. You know, like there's a little bit more there. But
Well, and I think that's where, I mean, it's at the instigation of demons, if we're being honest, right? Because the demons don't hate Islam. The demons don't hate Hinduism. They don't hate Buddha.
right,
The demons don't mock. And this is one of the things that actually started my journey back to the faith. Now, I left the Catholic faith. I never left Christianity per se, because I never believed, I never gave up on the belief or the understanding that Jesus was the Word incarnate. Like, that was always, to me, something that was compelling enough, that I believe is compelling enough if you take an honest look at history, that you can't help but understand that. And if that's true, there are consequences, right? And so I never But what happened is I went with my fiance at the time and her daughter and her daughter's friend to New Orleans on for Halloween. Now, who
Okay.
would go to one of the voodoo capitals of the country on like the one of the most occult ritualistic evenings of the year?
In that joint.
It
Yeah.
was not my choice, but I was like, okay, well, I can either let them go because they were going to go without me. I can either let them go, and there can be three women by themselves in this hostile place, potentially dangerous place, at least spiritually, if not otherwise, or I can accompany them, be with them in prayer, and at least be a masculine presence to protect them as they meander through these streets of wickedness, right? Whatever. I mean, I respect. I mean, I'm not casting shade on my fiance at all. She's is still one of the most wonderful people I know. She's an absolutely marvelous person. So it's not at all a criticism of her. It was just a lack of awareness or sensitivity to that particular angle, right?
All right.
But be that as it may, I decided to go precisely because I wanted to be there for her. Hey, what's up, Haywood? Sorry, I just saw there was a bunch of comments I didn't see.
Oh, what's up? Yeah, I haven't looked at any.
Dead Game says he made woman, didn't he? Commenting on the evil. That's hilarious. Good day, Foray. What's up? Thanks for the repost. But anyways, okay, so the thing that impacted me the most, and this kind of set me back on my openness of heart to reconsider the Catholic faith, but not ignoring all of the putridity and corruption and stuff that's there, but it kind of inspired me to try to look beyond that veil, so to speak, that illusion, if it was that, to see if there was something more beyond it. Because what I found in this most dark evening of the year in one of the darkest cities in the country, there were, in all the costumes, there were people dressed up as demons, as zombies, of course, things you would expect, witches, all that. But in a mocking fashion, they were dressed up as nuns, as priests, as bishops, as Jesus on the cross. They weren't dressed up as Buddha or
Right.
Muhammad the Prophet or fill in the blank of any other religious leader.
Right.
Calvin, Luther, they weren't dressed up as any of those fools. They were dressed up as people who'd given themselves and consecrated their lives to our Lord, or mocking our Lord directly, in it with a Catholic theme. It wasn't just, right? So that was a big why does the devil hate the Catholic Church so much? That was a question that set me on this path to try to understand where the truth was more precisely. So
Okay.
But I mean, it's interesting because when you look at what going back to this concept of free will and evil, and like the idea that God didn't create evil because evil's not a positive reality. Evil is just a lack. It's a lack of a do good. So we can
Right.
talk about
It's perception. It's a perception from a. So the way I would see it would be evil would be contrary to like God's will, right? Like evil would be defiance, right? Like eating from the tree would be evil. God said, "Don't do it." You did it. That's defiance. That's evil. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like the perception, but it's always the antithesis of whatever God's thing is.
Well, so in if God is perfection, evil is imperfection.
Right.
If God is good, evil is, contrary of good is evil, right? So, but I think what's important to realize is we can talk about moral evil or physical evil,
Okay.
right? So physical evil is death, for example, or sickness. So we would say, kind of more philosophically, right, that if a bird is born without wings, that's a physical evil.
Okay.
We don't say evil in the same moral sense that we're used to saying it, but still it's kind of a more physical, tangible, easily accessible concept.
I'm tracking you.
So, but if a man is born without wings, we don't call that evil. But if he's born without a left arm, we would call that evil.
Right.
So the nature of the thing somehow determines what we consider evil in that thing.
Right.
So what's due to that thing? Well, we would call someone who's mentally retarded, that's an evil. That's a physical evil that person has to suffer, right? Because they should have full faculties and they don't, right? So I think that's an important concept, because whether it's a defect in nature, like a defect of the nature due to physical material means, like with retardation or something, or a missing limb, or if it's a moral evil because of choices, if when a person has chosen self over true good, or has chosen something, a lesser good that ends up entrapping their soul and limiting their freedom due to vice, right? Then it's our free will, and it's the freedom that God gave us to not be enslaved to the greatest good, but to choose it freely, that also by its very nature gives us the opportunity to not choose that greatest good, which has the consequence of limiting our freedom as we choose more and more evil, right? So it's not that freedom of will is a good thing that God gave us and he created and instilled in us.
Right.
But it's our usage of that freedom that is either good or evil.
Right. Yeah, no, that would make sense. Yeah, yeah. Or at least the intention behind the usage, But that all tracks absolutely square.
Yeah, so I mean that's why
I like the defect language too, that it's a defect, like such a way they fall apart.
A favorite example of mine from when I was studying philosophy is, right, you have object, end, and circumstance are the three elements of a human action. So what are you actually doing? You're shooting a gun because you're hunting, and your objective, the object of you is to, you're hunting. That's the object, right? Mm-hmm. You're pulling a trigger and killing something in the bush. Your end is to get a great venison to share with your family for dinner.
Right.
Well, the circumstance happens to be that rustling in the bush was your father, who you were hunting with, and you didn't realize, right? So all three of them have to be there. If you intend to kill your father, but it's actually a venison, it's still an evil act.
Right.
Right? If the other way around, it's still an evil act, even if you don't intend it to be. So it's interesting that an imperfection in any of those three key elements of what a human act is renders the action evil, whether or not we're not talking about culpability of the person's heart, because it may have been genuinely accident, right? So we're not, and that's why I think it's important, like Scripture says, only God can judge the mind and probe the heart, which is important because it's really important to look in the world around us and say, okay, that's evil, that person is doing evil, etc. That doesn't mean, and we have to be careful not to judge the heart of the person, because they may sincerely be doing what they believe is right,
Right on.
Even
no. Right. Yeah, because either they don't know better, or they've been misled, or for whatever numerous reasons that.
Well, and I think if any point in history we can cut people slack who seem to be doing, who are doing what's objectively evil, but if there's any time in history that we could give them the benefit of the doubt and assume good intentions, it's today, because people don't even know what the earth that they walk on is anymore, right? They don't even know, like, people have been deceived and brainwashed on so many levels. The psyops are literally continuous 24/7 via their cell phones, our cell phones, I should say, because I'm subject to it as well. I don't mean to imply that I'm standing outside of it unaffected by it, but like it's, and I hope people cut me slack, because I know I do evil even with the best intentions as well, but I think it's just, if there's ever a time to really be patient and merciful and give loving benefit of the doubt to the people around us, it's our time, frankly.
And that's interesting, because psychologically that's the opposite of how humans act. Like we tend to view things that happen in our group more positively or with better intention, so we cut ourselves or our group more slack, and we tend to assume that whatever transgression happened from an outsider was a wrong against us or intentional. So I guess it takes an awareness to cut that slack, right? Like a desire and kind of like a focused intent. Like, okay, I'm grounded. That's the choice I'm making.
Well, and what I think what's nice, what's wonderful about the phone booth, all the phone booth crew is that um, we all, for the most part, really try to avoid kind of that two-party mentality of everything that blue does is bad because I'm red,
Right,
or
right,
vice
right.
versa, right?
Team A good, team B bad. Yeah.
So I think we all do a pretty decent job, at least in intention, I think, of stepping back from the optics and looking critically at both sides and saying, okay, well, what's really going on here? What's this individual action of this person? Call it I country, call it Mr. T, call it whatever you want.
Right.
What's the objective good or evil of what this person's doing without considering the party, you know?
Right. Yeah. Let the actions, let the merits speak for themselves. Right. Like let the fruits reveal themselves.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I mean, and I apply that as well to like religious affiliation because I know a great number of Catholics who I wouldn't ever hang my hat with because I see the fruits of their actions. I mean, I don't know, I can't judge their intentions,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't stand by what they're doing with their lives or their choices. They seem to be wreaking a lot of havoc, willing or not. And the contrary is true as well, that a lot of the people that I know who don't even subscribe to any faith are some of the most good-hearted people that I know who are truly trying to live the best lives they can and find the truth as honestly as they can. You know, and so it's kind of like, again, it's that two-party idea that I think it's really important to step back from and be like, where is this? Let me love and respect this person in front of me and understand what they're about
Right.
before I condemn them because of their affiliation with one creed or religion or whatever, right?
Yeah. And that's why you got to fight your way through because all the noise is going to tell you to be team A or be team B or whatever. Like it's kind of what that algorithm and that life cycle kind of throws at people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Divide.
Well, so
Fear.
yeah,
Divide,
and I mean, we were
fear.
talking a little bit before we got here that there's that. Before we started going live here, we were talking about I was sharing a memory about when I was a child at Lincoln Park Zoo, hearing this lion roar. It was just chilling, and imagining hearing that in the jungle would be terrifying. And there's that verse that I mentioned about in Scripture about cautioning us because the devil's like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. Resist him solid in your faith. Well, two things. One is the way that a lion hunts is, the path that the wildlife takes. The lion will sit on one side and roar, and it's the fear of the roar that drives the wildlife into the clutches of the lionesses who are waiting on the other side. And so I think the message is like we have to resist that fear and just stay the course.
Yeah, don't get spooked. Don't run off.
Don't run off and take a jab. Don't run off and do God knows what else out of
Right.
fear, which is
Don't
such a
take the mark.
compelling. Don't take the mark. But the other thing is that we didn't mention before is, I mean, that's it, what's interesting is the line right before that verse about the lion prowling like a roaring lion, or the devil prowling like a roaring lion. Right before that is the verse or two before that is all about how much God loves us. So it's resist him solid in your faith. Faith in what? Faith in the fact that God loves you. So it's really cool because, I mean, as our Lord said, perfect love casts out fear. So if we love our Lord and understand and have faith in his love for us, then we won't respond to the fear and get the mark. We won't
Right.
respond from the fear and, who knows what else is coming,
Right. Yeah. Well, because there's going to be fear set loose on the earth. Like there's going to be like the fear. It says will stop men's heart, right? Like so, it's going to be such dread, such fear will run amok. But that would speak to why, this would be the way to go, right? To have that faith, so that you're immune to that fear, so you're not in there. You can't be taken out, I guess, technically, that way.
And I think, because we say that God works all good for um, all things for the good of those who love Him, and like it just makes me think of, because like the idea of God allows evil into this universe or into our lives or into this world as like a dissonant chord is placed by the composer into a piece of music, because the resolution of that chord is actually, we know scientifically, it's actually perceived as more beautiful than if that piece were to have no discord in it at all, right? So,
Okay.
with and even like Dolby Digital surround sound at the beginning of
Right.
every movie or a lot of movies, right? Like that feeling of that dissonant chord and that resolution is very refreshing and beautiful. And so it's like, okay, well, God only allows the dissonant chords in our life that He is able to resolve into something more beautiful. And that's where I think there will come a time, if anyone watching, or if any of you guys, I could share with like my personal experience has been like, if anything that we've experienced in our lives, no matter how difficult or painful it was, if you don't see it as a blessing yet, you will one day, because that chord hasn't been resolved yet. And like I know from some of the things I've shared with the custody battle and other things that I'm going through and have been through, I know I've already seen the resolution of parts of that, but there's other parts that need to be resolved still, but I trust they will be. But I know that parts that have been resolved, I already look back and I know that I wouldn't be the man I am today if I hadn't gone through that. And I think we'll all, when the final trial of this life, whether it's my own personal life and the end times are another 1,000 years off,
Right.
or whether the end times are in a few short years from now, either way, there will come a climax of trial in my life where I'm going to look back on those other trials and thank God for them, because I will see that those strengthened me to be able to sustain what I'm going through now.
Yep. Yep. That is 100% the truth. And the older I get, the more I understand that. That's something that comes with time, and you realize all the things you wanted before in your life on certain things, and you can look back with perspective and be like, man, that would have fucked up my life. If I got that prayer, if I got that desire right there, that would have messed me up. That too, but
Yeah.
in the moment, I wanted it so bad, and why don't I, well, I didn't know better. Surprise,
Right? And that's where it's so funny. One of my favorite Garth Brooks songs is "Sometimes I Thank God for Unanswered Prayers."
Yeah.
Such a great song.
Yep.
And I mean, I was head over heels with this gal. Jessica was her name. I was 15 years old. She was my closest bosom buddy. She and I were best friends. And of course there was attraction there as well, and we were very, very close. Things didn't work out, and it wasn't our choice. It was a parental decision to separate us because they felt we were too close. Whatever. Okay. I was really torn up over it. I know she was as well. It was just a really hard thing for both of us to bear. But now looking back, I think both of us recognize that was for the best. Even if the manner in which it was pushed upon us, so to speak, was definitely not ideal, you can see how God worked it for both of our goods. I mean, it's just beautiful.
That's one of those things you can only know looking back, man, like just time. Because, in the moment you want what you want, and it's not always what's best. It's kind of like those studies where they say, I'll give you, 2 cookies now, or you can have 10 cookies later. And everybody wants the 2 cookies now. Even though you get more cookies just waiting. Now.
Yeah. I think it took me 10 or 15 years to see that that was good for me back then when I was 15. Now, 25 years later, I can see things just last year or 2 years ago, prayers that were unanswered that were good for me. So
Yeah.
hopefully, as I get older, that time gap continues to close.
Yeah.
And,
You
so.
know, the older I get, the other thing that I find myself doing is showing appreciation not only for the little victories, like anytime like something goes through right my way and I'm like, hey, thank you, Lord, thank you, Lord. But even for the things that kind of suck. Dude, I don't know why you just did that, but thanks. Like your thoughts aren't mine. I don't know what's going on, but all right, I guess. Sometimes that gets hard. Obviously, like if there's a death from a loved one or whatever, that's a hard thing to try to go through, and that's one of those things that's challenging, but you still understand. But those are the moments where it's hardest. But it depends on the tribulation, right? They're not all equal, right? Like, hey, I didn't get that parking spot isn't the same as, damn, I just lost my arm, so I
Right,
don't
right.
want to.
So one of my favorite saints, I think she was, I want to say she was like around the 16th century. I could be off. I don't remember frankly. Saint Teresa of Avila. So there's this great story where she's like, I mean, she suffered a lot for our Lord. She'd given her whole life to our Lord in prayer, and one of my favorite books she wrote was called The Interior Castle, where she has that chess analogy that you may have heard me relate before, but about how God's pursuit of the heart is like a chess match. I'll get back to that in a second if I haven't shared that yet. But at one point in her biography or autobiography or whatever, I don't. She was getting out of a carriage and slips and fell in the mud. She gets up, shakes off the mud, and looks up to heaven and says, "Lord, if this is how you treat your friends, it's no wonder you don't have so many." But it was just kind of like that tongue in cheek. Like she was just like that was how casual and comfortable her relation, not casual, but that was how comfortable she was with our Lord, and it was kind of like her just kind of playfully.
Right, I feel
Um,
you.
yeah, it was just very endearing. But yeah, her whole chess match thing is so beautiful to me because it's helped me also have some more humility in my conversations with other people, because she says that like it's a chess match. Like the Lord he's patient. He gets all the pieces in the right place before he checkmates our heart and causes us to fall in love with him, like, and wins our heart. And so sometimes like I see, so then I put myself in that chessboard as a little pawn, and I might be very passionate about something I believe or understand to be true. And if I really want someone I'm speaking to understand that truth and have the joy that I have and know the Lord like I know the Lord or whatever, if I'm that pawn and I'm acting on my own self will of wanting this, I can move up a square ahead of where the master who's playing the board, who's trying to so I could delay the checkmate by checking the king too early, and now the king's escapes away off to, what I'm saying, like
Mm-hmm.
I can ruin the perfect plan to win this person's heart for God by pushing too much and taking my own willful timing. God's patient. He's so patient with me. Why should I not be patient with somebody else? If I truly believe that there's a loving God that's in pursuit of their heart, why would I push? You know?
Yeah, no, that's interesting. One thing that I mean, patience is the thing I need. The older I get, I'm just becoming that old grouchy fucking old man, right? Like zero patience. I'm just like, so I I
I
feel
know the
that
feeling.
though. You know, I when you say it, I recognize it as something that's like I'm short on that. I need that. Like I recognize that.
Well, I remember what drove it home for me was I remember when I had first been in the monastery. So I'm studying all these writings of great saints from throughout the ages, and great spiritual truths. I have all day every day in prayer and meditation, and I get to go home for a couple weeks a year, to spend time with my family. And I remember it was like after I'd been in the monastery for 3 or 4 years, and I was talking to my mom about something. I don't remember what it was. And she couldn't see there was a truth that I was just rejoicing in. and I
Okay.
wanted to share, and she couldn't see it. And I insisted. She couldn't see it, and I pushed. She couldn't see it, and I argued. And there was a lot of tension, and it defeated the whole purpose of what I was trying to share. It lost the whole spirit of it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so I
Yeah, because then
learned.
it went from rejoicing to combating.
So my own, and maybe it's not for her, even if my understanding was true, and that's an if I acknowledge is an important if, right? Even if my understanding of that truth was accurate, that doesn't mean it was her time to understand that now. Maybe all I was supposed to do was plant that seed and let it grow for another time.
And that's another reason that you never know, you know? Like, yeah, dude, I'm feeling all this. It's also kind of like, it gives me these vibes whenever, you know, you see somebody on TV or modern day and you're like, yeah, dude, like, this person back in the day I never would have associated with this. You know what I mean? Like that they're going to be this prominent or this important or have this kind of an impact. You know, like it's just those chains of events innocuously lead up to what they do, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, and yeah, I mean, I think another favorite analogy of mine is like if you're building a Lego castle or like a Lego tower, you know,
Okay.
and there's the ramparts on the top.
Okay.
And, you know, there's like this whole beautiful tower that's going to be, and, you know, let's say I'm speaking to someone maybe who doesn't understand cosmology yet. They're still a heliocentricist, still an evolutionist or whatever. And so they're like putting the Lego pieces on the base. And I give them a window that's up towards the parapet at the top. Right? And I give them a piece up there, and if I give that to them, if I share a truth that I see and know to be true, like the form of the earth or like so many other things we could talk about, they may not have any place to put it because they're not there yet.
Right.
So they could be like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I don't see where that fits, so they just put it aside.
Right, no understanding or comprehension or whatever. It's like giving someone technology that it's outside of their fathom. They're just like magic. What?
And as soon as the other pieces are placed in that Lego tower of theirs, that they have somewhere to put it, then it's there for them, and they'll know it, you know, and they'll be like, oh, because I know that's happened to me where I've heard something and laughed it off. I think the first person that told me about flat Earth, I laughed it off. 2 or 3 years later, somebody else mentioned it to me, and I was in a different place with a different frame of reference, and I was like, huh, I actually have heard about that before. Tell me more. You know? So it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, I call those but of course moments. You know? You're like, but of course. But of course. Yep. Okay. Now it makes sense. But of course.
Right? Right. Exactly. I love it. I love it. You know? And that's not to say that, like, because I don't want it to sound like, oh, well, you know, some of us are more advanced and have the tower built higher. No, like imagine like a castle with 3 or 4 towers, and maybe tower A, I've got 2/3 of the way up, and tower B, I'm only at 10%, you know?
On.
So you're giving me some information that I don't know how to place anywhere. I might give you information you don't know where to place, right? So
right.
I'm not trying to imply that, like...
Right, there's some superiority here, like all this is coming from a... Yeah, I got you.
You know, when the time is right and you've built your tower sufficiently, son, you will understand what I'm trying to tell you. No. So, hey, what's up, Shiva? Shiva's in the house.
What's up, Shiva?
So, yeah, so I mean, I think it's interesting. That's another, I think she was from the 12th century, but there's a Catherine of Siena, she was called. She wrote a really beautiful work called Providence. Okay. And in there, she has a chapter about how God's providence is so perfect that every single person that I meet, I have an opportunity for humility because I can learn something from them. But I also have an opportunity for charity with each and every person that I met because I can actually share something with them, or they can learn something from me. So that's such a beautiful disposition, I think, to go through life, where to look at everybody, we can learn something from everybody. Meyer's like he's talking about me. What's up, Meyer? Yes,
Meyer.
I've learned stuff from Meyer. It's true, and hopefully the other way around as well. But yeah, so I mean, I think that's a really important disposition of heart as well, is to just see and appreciate every person, even people. That's why I really don't like this idea of calling people NPCs. I know people can seem that way because we're on completely different frames of reference, but I think what's at the heart of that reference or that labeling is a dismissiveness of that person's life experience and heart and mindset and understanding when they're a child of God as well, even if they don't know him yet.
Dude, and you know what? I feel you, and I struggle with that. Because I recognize what you're saying, but at the same point, I'm also like, these people are such fucking little NPCs. So it is a struggle, right? It's one of those things where it's like I think when I get that balanced, I'll know I'm a little bit smoother. I'm a little closer to where I need to be. Like I struggle with that a lot, dude, and that's probably a lot to do with just feeling like you got it all figured out, or it's too much pride, I guess. Really, it's like thinking it's being too much in my shit.
So I've struggled with that a lot in my life as well. There's been a couple moments that really shattered that perception in me, and one of them I'll share with you here that really took me aback in a beautiful way. So I was in the lowest of the low of my life. I was dealing with the beginnings and the most difficult period of the custody battle, where I literally lost everything and everybody that I cared about in 1 month time. So much so that I had to drive across country, put whatever I could fit in my car, and drive across country to make sure that I didn't lose a court case that was filed fraudulently, a custody battle that was initiated fraudulently on the other side of the country, when we didn't even live in that state. But I couldn't beat it, so I had to the judge decided to keep it in the courts in Illinois, and I had to abandon my lease and move across country with just what I could fit in my car. Couldn't even afford a hotel, so I park in a Walmart parking lot, because I had read that you can park in Walmart, you can sleep there, no one's going to bother you, and the lighting is sufficient. So I was going to spend the night in the Walmart. I'm just doze off to sleep in my car, and I hear a knock on the window, like a hot knuckle on the window. Tink, tink, tink. And then my name, very clearly. I woke up only to see an empty parking lot with nobody for 50 yards in every direction. So I was like, but right when I came to and realized there's nobody around, that wasn't somebody, that was something. Yeah, car homelessness hits different. Yeah, appreciate you, brother. So it was like, okay, well, there must be a church that's open nearby. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but there's churches in every city, Catholic churches in every city, that have adoration. So they keep the chapel open 24/7, and Catholics believe that Jesus is present in the Eucharist, right? So they have the Eucharist on display for people to just come in and pray, to be with God in his presence and pray and adore. So I was like, why am I sleeping out here in a cold, empty parking lot when I can go be with our Lord? Silly me. So I looked up, and sure enough, a 3-4 minute drive away was the only church in Las Vegas, because that's where that was the first stop. That was where I could get after work that day. The first stop was Vegas. So I went from the parking lot to this chapel that was open 24/7. And so I'm in there just praying, and I'm like, Lord, give me strength, give me peace. Like I was just there trying to be at ease and rest with him, because there's so much going on internally, as you can imagine. So I'm kind of fighting sleep a little bit in like one of the back pews of the chapel, just praying. And there's this elderly gentleman who comes in, and clearly a very simple man, a very, very little mental means. Like he's I don't know if he was handicapped or just a former drug addict. I'm not sure, but she was just a very simple man, and he's not even really aware of the fact that he's being a disruption, but he's cleaning everything. He's vacuuming, he's dusting, he's moving things around, making sure everything is spotless, right? So he goes through this whole circuit, and at first I was a little frustrated. I was like, what is this guy doing? You know, like it's 2 or 3 in the morning. What is he doing? And I was like, okay, well, bless his heart. I'll say a prayer for him. You know, Jonah, don't be a fool. Like, this guy's just loving our Lord as well, just like you are, but in a different way, right? And so he had finished and disappeared. And at this point, I was like, all right, I got to be back on the road in 3 hours. I should try to get some sleep. So I was going to go back to my car and just sleep for a couple hours before I head out. I'm like halfway to my car, and I pass him, and he's literally chain smoking. I can see there's a pile of cigarettes next to him, right? He's chain smoking with like a 12-pack of PBR and a couple empty cans next to him, right? He's standing on the railing overlooking the parking lot, right? You know, it's not a good look. It's not one that inspires, you know, anything, right? Anything positive in our human estimation. But anyway, so I walk past him, and I wanted to acknowledge the love that he showed by cleaning the chapel. And so I just said, you know, thanks for taking care of the chapel. God bless you. Have a good night, as I walked to my car. He didn't say anything, but then he was like, you. I was about to get in my car. He's like, you. I was like, yes, sir. He's like, you are Job. I'm like, I'm sorry? And he's like, you're Job. God will restore all things. Trust him. He will restore all things. You're Job. Because you know the story of Job, where he just lost everything and was, you know, being tempted to curse God, but never did, right? But in that moment, like, my eyes flooded with tears, because that was the same thing a week earlier when everything was hitting the fan. I remember looking up to God in the little room that I was renting, and I was like, Lord, I don't know what you're doing in my life right now, but I trust you. I can't see it. I can't see what you're planning, and it hurts like hell, but I trust you, even though my emotions and my whole body and my whole everything is revolting. I trust that all things work for the good of those who love you. And you know I love you, as weakly and feebly as I do. And I heard in my heart from God at that point. It wasn't like an audible, like I didn't hear the voice of God. This idea came very firmly from God. You are Job, and I will restore all things. Almost the exact words that simple PBR chugging, chain smoking guy that was initially frustrating to me, that was the instrument God chose to not only humble me, but also inspire and encourage me. I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, dude. I love stories like that, by the way. Just so you know what I mean? Because it's just, I don't know, it gives hope. That's a thing that the world always needs. It's kind of like that hope and that understanding that something like that can occur. You know, like you don't know what's going to get used or who in your life is going to be used to show you a message, or what is going to teach you that lesson. And the more you think you know it, I think the less you realize you do when it all kind of comes through. I know I've become more hesitant to be like, what's it going to be? Because it's like, how'd that work out for me last time? Right? Like,
yeah. And like, you know, I think with age and experience, we realize to be slower to judge a situation or a person, because you never really know, you know?
Yeah, it's just whiplash, right? Like, because it's the circumstances. Some circumstances more lenient to it, and other times I'm judgmental as fuck, and it's just so hard to, you know, like, I don't know, try to zone in. I try to be aware of it, but
yeah,
put in the time.
It's constant battle, man. It's a constant challenge. Um, I've talked about it before, and I should share it on one of the comments at some point. But there's a book called The Sacrament of the Present Moment that just talks about how important to live in the moment is. And it's my favorite book, but I've never read past the second page. I get a page and a half, and then I just like so blown away with the reflections that flow upon that first page and a half. I never read any more of it. And I've read that first page and a half probably, I can't even count how many times. But it's just an incredible, and basically what it's saying is that like with the eyes of faith, what those who go through life without the eyes of faith see as random happenstance and circumstance and chance, the eyes of faith are able to see beyond the veil of the appearance and see the loving hand of God working all things for their good, and all as 1,000 signs of love.
Because they believe Creator. What's going to occur, so they can see the chain reaction throughout it. You know, like they see it happening.
Yeah. That reminds me of that Chinese proverb, you know, with that story about that older man and his son, and you know his son comes running in and says, "Oh, the horse that we plow our field with, that provides our sustenance, just escaped. That's terrible." And his father says, "Maybe yes, maybe no." Do you know the story?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he goes out. The son the next day goes out, or the horse comes back with 11 other wild horses, and they tame them all or whatever, or now they all get them all into the fence, and he's like, "This is wonderful. Our horses have multiplied. We're going to be wealthy," and all this other stuff. And he's like, "Maybe yes, maybe no." And the story continues with a chain reaction of events. Right. You know, the son breaks a leg, and he's like, "Maybe yes, maybe no." All this, anyways, it's really interesting. Yeah,
gets to dodge the military war and whatnot.
The draft comes along, and since his son broke a leg,
one innocuous little thing over here, it just kept him there. You know, like so. Yeah, it's a great story.
It is. So circling back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier about proximity to the end times potentially, and the final things that we all, especially like as Christians, we know are coming. Mm-hmm. In your estimation, and obviously no one's going to be held to it because none of us really know.
Right.
But your estimation,
just spitballing from what we assess.
Yeah. What is your take on how close, if close at all, are we to that, you know, those chapters in the apocalypse that describe the end of times?
I think you're seeing technically the beast rise right now. You're seeing the rise of the beast. So I think we're definitely at the start of tribulation, and I'm really at the point where I expect to hear something about the third temple being built. I know there's people who say, "Oh, there's not going to be a physical third temple." I tell them, shut up. Like, I'm sorry, I don't agree with that. There will be a third temple. It has to be built for them to go. But there's more reasons why, too. Plus, you still need the Antichrist to sit in there. And then on top of that, it even tells you in the Bible, even Jesus tells you that you got the part where there's going to be the temple and the spot for the Gentiles. So it'll probably be shared or whatever. But it is required. It is a part of fulfillment. So we have to get to the point where somebody says, you know, we're going to build it. How grand it is, I'm not sure. But
well, so there's a couple interesting interpretations I'd like to hear your thoughts on. One is our Lord himself said that the temple would be, you know, once they killed him, the temple itself would then be destroyed, which it was in 70 AD.
Right.
And no temple would ever be constructed on that spot again.
No, because he references, is it Daniel? I think he references Daniel's prophecy of the end time with the Antichrist and the temple. So that's actually the only prophet that ever even gets referenced. So to me, that would act as support that there is a temple, a physical temple, that the Antichrist claims to be or declares himself God.
See, what's interesting is, so my understanding, and this is my understanding,
Sure.
is that what our Lord was saying is that because I think it happened in about 120, 150 AD, they tried to rebuild the temple,
Mm-hmm.
and the earth opened up and flames consumed the workers and knocked down the stones that they had tried to build when they tried to build the third temple. Now, you could argue it just wasn't time yet.
Correct.
But one
because
also,
the Antichrist is what creates the thing. He brokers the deal, right? He brokers the peace and he brokers the deal, which then allows the temple to be built, which then he sits inside and declares himself to be God, and also at that point declares war on Israel, right? And then that's when everything goes into super biblical mode.
yeah. So the other interpretation is, which I find more compelling personally,
Okay.
is that there's two temples we're talking about. The physical temple of Solomon, right, that was destroyed, and that no other temple would be rebuilt there. And that's what Christ was saying literally, and that's true. He also said that his body was the temple and that he would rebuild it in 3 days, and that the body of Christ, meaning the body of believers, are the temple, and that the head of that the Antichrist would be sitting in the temple, meaning in leadership within Christ's body, within the new temple, within the church of believers. So it would be a believer of Jewish descent, because we know the Antichrist has to be of Jewish descent, but that it would be a bishop or pope of some kind sitting in authority within the temple of God, within the new temple of God, so to speak. And that would be the Antichrist, somebody from within the church structure. Which I think we see compelling examples of potential Antichrists in the popes of the last century, right? One main one that I think would be, at least as a typical, like a type or a precursor of the Antichrist, would be John Paul II, because it was the biggest funeral in the world. He was revered and honored more than any other man ever has been, which is an exact inversion of how Christ was received, you know.
So
And
the reason I don't believe it's going to be is, first off, like God was chastising in the book of Revelation, the church says everything is fallen, but more so the Antichrist kind of creates a bridge, right? Because he creates a central religion, to him. So I don't see how it would be the Catholic Church or something like that. It also would have to be something that fulfills like the Muslim God's prophecy, right? And it has to fulfill I don't know, kind of like a universal pattern, I guess, if you will. Not a universal pattern, but a
yeah,
archetypal
like kind of
pattern.
a universal syncretistic church where all, so to speak, where all religions felt welcome in one.
Right, and that it would
organization.
fit in tune, right? Because that's the only way people are. The Muslims, that the Antichrist has to come on in the stage in a certain way where he fulfills certain things that fulfill things towards the Muslim faith, right? Like
Right.
it's and then the same thing with the Jewish people, right? And etc. Right? The same thing with India, right? Indians, like people who believe in what is it? Not Indians, but Hindu. I'm sorry, Hindu.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So as you go around, there's these different fulfillments that this character has to fulfill. It's not just for us, right? Like he meets all the
See,
deceptive.
yeah, this is part of why I actually think it might be a pope,
Mm-hmm.
is because starting in I'm sure you've heard, I've said it, I've shared a number of times my understanding of that the Catholic Church was hijacked in 58 and the true pope was pushed underground or whatever. But since then, you've had these Assisi conferences where it's been these interfaith meetings where they've prayed and adored together. Hindus, Wiccans, Buddhists, Jews, Muslims, everybody under one roof in ceremony and prayer with the Pope. And so very much that feeling of what you're saying about like kind of incorporating all religions into one. So that's interesting. The other thing that I think is interesting and a common misconception, I think is a common misconception, is when it's talking about the Antichrist, it says that he will, that specifically about the mark, says that no one will be able to buy or sell unless they receive the mark. In other words, his method of control is not political, not militarily, but his control is going to be economic and currency driven.
Well, not exclusively, but it's a thing because it also does his control is military because he builds a super force, right, in a one world system, and nobody can make war with the beast, right? Like he centralizes and controls. So that's another thing. So that person, and that's how we know like or where to look, right? Because that person comes on scene right when all hell is going to break out, right? Like that's how we get to the temple being built. The guy comes on scene right as it looks like we're about to go into whatever and gets chills out, makes a deal, makes a peace plan, and a byproduct is the temple, you know. So
yeah,
that's my understanding of it.
And wouldn't it be interesting if Palantir and digital currencies come through, and in the midst where we feel like World War III is ramping up, if whether it's Trump or some other Trump adjacent figure comes in working closely with Trump, if not himself, and just like unwinds all this complicated borderline World War III buildup that we're seeing and then restores peace without Christ. It'd be interesting.
But I don't think that's going to... Well, yeah, it's going to happen without, because that's part of the Great Deception.
Correct.
You know, like that's the whole thing, right? Like everyone's going to be drawn to that person. Yeah, like, yeah, I think we're right on the cusp of the reveal here. You know, obviously any day, any time. I think we can see that I don't know, the structure, the base is there, right? Nobody tries to pretend they care anymore on anything at all. You know, even for the war, like the light of your face.
Yeah.
You know? So morality is pretty much gone out the window.
Which
right?
is one of the things we were told would come before the end.
Right.
Is the fervor of men growing cold and turning to vice.
And greed is running rampant, you know? So, yeah, I think we're in the... We have to be in that spot in order to get here. You know what I mean? People got to turn away. People got to be scared of each other. People have to be consumed with their own bubble. You know, like... It took a lot of groundwork, I think, to get us here. You know, this wasn't happenance. This was the long con. You know, like, it was a long chess game.
And what's interesting, too, is if you just take a step back from all the theories and say, okay, well, is the ground ready?
Hold on, let me turn this light on so it's less...
Oh, you're good. So, of the things that we were told would happen, namely, the two witnesses that do war with the Antichrist are going to be slain and left and laying open in the road for days, while the whole world looks on and rejoices.
Yep.
Now, the only
gifting
way
each other.
The whole world. The only way that the whole world. I don't know of another time. I mean, yes, we could hypothesize and theorize about advanced technology in the past, but as far as we can see and know for certain. Now, with today's live streaming technology from everybody's handheld device, this is the first time in history that we're aware of, at least, that the whole world could actually look on simultaneously and rejoice at a single event. And
or that you could communicate with the whole world at one point in time.
And this is the first time in history also, because if you look at, if no one could buy or sell, that means an immense amount of control and data monitoring of the entire population of the Earth. The only way that that's possible is with two things: a digital currency and AI to track all the data. There's no other way that that's possible. You can't have an army big enough to make sure that people can't quietly exchange gold coins or silver tokens, behind closed doors. I mean, that's still obviously going to be possible on some level. Even bartering is going to be possible, but in the economic sense of buying or selling outright with currency is not going to be possible unless you whatever, right? So those two things, which are very indicative of the end times, those are actually now possible. I mean, they'll be possible 10 years from now, apparently, 50 years, 100 years from now as well, you would think. But this is we're on the cusp of the first time in history that those things are actually viable. Mm-hmm. That's sobering.
Yeah, no, but the one thing to not cut short on that mark, right? The reason I don't just sell it short to like a crypto thing is the importance of the mark, right? Not only are you not able to buy and sell with it, but it will literally damn your soul. You know what I mean? Like that is a pretty big piece to hold on to. So it's not just that you can't get the thing that lets you buy or sell. It's because that mark is the mark saying, I'm no longer under your wing. I'm no longer under your auspice. I'm choosing the beast, and I'm taking the beast's mark, and the beast will provide from me from this point on. You know.
Well, what's interesting too is the ancient Israelites, so the Jewish people, actually the authentic Jewish people leading up to Christ, right? Mm-hmm. One of the symbols that like symbolic, and I think it was in Deuteronomy, that basically says that you should carry the Lord's name as on your forehead and on your right hand, and it was symbolic to say that all of our thoughts, just like the Shema, O Israel, remember the Lord is your God, the Lord alone. Therefore you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. Well, so to truly love and live out our faith, we have to have our thoughts and our minds directed to the Lord and the things of God, and our actions. So it's symbolically having the Lord engraved on your forehead and your hand means that your thoughts belong to Him, and your actions belong to Him, because you've given yourself both thought and action, body and soul, to Him. Mm-hmm. And so it is possible also that the mark won't actually be a physical mark, but it'll be more of like what you were kind of describing, like a mark of allegiance, where our minds and our
I think I think the mark is a physical representation. Like I think it's going to be a very real mark. Like it's going to be a very real choice. Like get it there, or it says your head chopped off. Like that, it says it there. There's nothing short of it. So that to me, yeah. I'm stuck on it. I'm like a pit bull. I can't maneuver off that.
It could very well be also a physical thing as well, but I do think it would be prudent of us to also consider what we're giving our minds to and what we're doing with our actions in terms of pleasing to God or not. And I think that's kind of another. It could be both and, right? It could mean both. It could be the literal meaning as well as a symbolic meaning meant to kind of guide our hearts and minds as well, right?
Well, that's the other thing. That's what makes me kind of wonder about, like waiting to see, like the prophets, right? Like the two prophets that come and the world's reaction to them, right? Because if you're paying attention and you're watching all this go down, that should also give you kind of like a gauge of, where things are and what's going on, right? So, and where you stand, because if you're like one of those people that are like, fuck those two guys, you got a little recalibrating to do, right? Yeah. Let's adjust that a little bit. Yeah.
Quick soul inventory. What's going on?
Right. So you gotta figure out where you're at and what stage. But I don't know. I imagine because they're supposed to pop off pretty much right there at the point of the start of tribulation.
One thing I found compelling that someone told me years ago as well is that the book of Revelation and biblical prophecy in general isn't intended as a way for us to predict the future. Mm-hmm. It's rather something for us to be able to when these things start happening, to recognize them for what they are. That's that.
Mm-hmm.
For example,
but they have to fit, because just like even Christ, right? All the prophecies that he had to hit, the way he hit them, you know what I mean? Like, so they're there. They may seem innocuous, but I mean, they're there, and that's why I pushed back.
203, 209.
Yeah.
How many was it? Yeah, something
down
over
to these guys are gonna play dice for my shit, bro. Like they're gonna give me bitter wine. I'm gonna drink like just everything across everywhere. You know, so like that's why I'm also so, because it's like, man, it took so much, and I'm not a priest, I'm not a scholar, right? But I'm just kind of, you know, like I don't know.
No, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, I think even just for him to have fulfilled 10 of the Old Testament prophecies is more mathematically improbable than the Big Bang, which is unbelievably improbable, right? And mathematically impossible. So the fact that there were 200 plus is very compelling. Meyer says, "Is BB alive?" and then he says, "Tell me more about Jesus." And is he on one of these comments? Too many comments on X. Comments, not comments. Comments.
As far as BB, I think at best he's probably like he was hurt, you know. But I think that the videos that we've seen recently are most likely AI. I think that he's not around because he's probably dead, and overall, and they don't want to say that because it's not the narrative they want with the war push and everything. So
my suspicion, and this would make Vince happy, my suspicion is that BB has been arrested by Trump and company for war crimes, and that will be revealed in time. But I still don't think that means that Trump is good. I think it's part of the whole deception. But because we're told the first arrest by Q, the first arrest will be indicative of future direction. And you have to, now with all of the noticing and the revealing that they've shown the country of the AIPAC tentacles and everything, they can't let that stay and have a new temple built or have a world government or peace. They
sure they can. No, because here's what's going to happen, right? I don't think people understand where we're at with this situation. We don't get to vote. There's no good guys. Even if Israel is blown to smithereens over there, like 1940s Israel, right? This control of the power apparatus here in the United States, of our government that they have grabbed, like, no one's letting loose. I don't believe that there's any bad guys behind the scene, and I think this is the beginning of the new normal. I think the gulags happen, but you know, like we're not in a good spot. We waited too long. We abdicated too much responsibility. We dicked off too long. Whatever you want to say, but we're cooked. Period.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree with that, but I think we're cooked in a different way. Meyer says, "Are we close to the end of days?" Yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. I think we think we're very close. Yeah. Haywood says the same. I really feel that Jesus will be here very soon with everything going on in today's chaotic world. Agreed. I do not believe it'll be as soon as Easter Sunday, Haywood. I think we've got several more years at least. But I do believe it's coming soon.
And remember, it's not through works, man. It's through faith and acceptance of his sacrifice. That's how you are saved, you know? Like, you have to recognize and accept that, you know, he is God incarnate in man, you know, and that he died for the sins of the world, and that was his gift, you know, that he brought us back before God. You know, like that we can be seen again. We can be in the presence of everything now. We've been redeemed. We've been fixed. The sin, you know, like, which was the defect, is kind of shielded, you know, from us. It kind of...
Yeah, well, and as Hebrews says that all things have been recreated in Christ. He's the new Adam, right? So we're all through our baptism and belief in Him, we're reborn into eternal life, essentially, right? That's
Which when they do this religious manipulation is what I like to call it, like I don't think government should be poking people and saying believe in this God or believe in this faith or you're going to be cursed or you're a bad person or whatever, like the stuff that's going on with Ted Cruz and people saying uh, if you curse Israel, you'll be cursed, whatever they're trying to use.
Yeah.
Bogus general, right? Like, first off, that's not government's position to be in because there's so many religions and faiths, that we do have freedom of faith. They should be stepping away from that. But as a Christian, I find it extra offensive. But just, like, just feels like manipulation, like, look at you over here picking and choosing how you want to.
Well, see, this is where I have the admittedly unpopular opinion now of believing that separation of church and state is a bad thing, and that separation of church and state always leads to, infallibly, every time throughout history, it always leads to the persecution of Christians. Every time. Because Christianity, if you believe that our Lord came incarnate, then there's a whole, you can't, that's why the devil hates Christianity because of that. Right? So this is why Christianity and other religions can't coexist. Other religions can coexist with each other fine because they don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. Obviously, there's certain things like Islam, they try to militarily conquer. Israel sees everybody else as goyim and subject to them and subhuman.
Or you could just enforce the separation, right? Like, you could tell somebody like Ted Cruz, like, hey, cool story, glad you feel that way personally, but as your stance, as your government representative stance to say something like that is completely out of lines, as it would be if you said it, in contrast to something pro-Muslim, pro-Christian, whatever.
Yeah, well, similar to how, I think a healthy society has homosexuality and prostitution and other things like that as illegal, right? That doesn't mean that you can't be a homosexual in the privacy of your own home and do your own debaucherous things by yourself, fine. But you can't have a pride parade and corrupt the youth and corrupt our culture, the culture of a wholesome culture. So similarly, I think it would actually be a good thing to have a Christian government that basically said, look, you're not forced to be Christian because it should be a free choice. That's how God operates. So we shouldn't behave any differently as humans. But I think it would be reasonable for a healthy, like a healthy, integrated society that was all working towards one thing to say, okay, if you want to be Christian, do it private. I mean, if you want to be anything else, do it privately, right?
Right. Except this is where we find ourselves now, kind
Fair.
of like.
Yeah. No, we're kind of talking ideals.
Yeah,
the other point that I'm kind of flowing on some of the comments, I'm not going to pull them all up, but some of the comments going back and forth about BB being arrested and everything, and who maybe did it and all this. I think one perspective, I'd like to hear your thoughts, Templar. A perspective by this woman, this young lady called Probably Alexandria.
Okay.
Probably Alexandria on YouTube, and she's got a Substack and everything. I'll what I find. But she has a beautiful insight, I feel, on the end times. And she says the dark beast, so the beast of the sea, is defeated by the beast of the earth in Revelation. Both are evil, but one wars against the other. Both war against Christ, but the beast of the land, think common law, think Trump and the white hats, does war against the beast of the sea, think maritime law, think Obama's, Clinton's, Rothschilds, right? So this false light, this Christless enlightenment, rises up to defeat what they've really shown us to be a wicked one world order that they're trying. It's all been. I mean, everybody knows about it. It's not a mystery. Everybody jokes about the Illuminati in public, and in private give it some credence. Most people these days, especially after the last 10 years. So, but you're not going to deceive good-willed people into thinking that pedophiles, globalists, money launderers, and all those people are you're not going to deceive them into giving authority and acknowledging and honoring them. But if another world system comes in, displaces that, exposes the lies and the crimes in a false peace and a false light, a Luciferian light, then that's why that you could see how people would be deceived, especially Christians who maybe aren't as discerning, or that you could see that would be a potential deception there. And then the other piece there, I think the Whore of Babylon is the Vatican today.
So like the.
But
I mean,
I'm sorry.
it could
One
be...
last thought, not to interrupt your thought
Sure.
process, but just to connect it back to Meyer's comment about the arrest of Netanyahu. Netanyahu is very clearly perceived by the world at large, by a lot of the common man, not the media. I'm not talking about that, obviously, but by your common man, he's seen as a monster that's part of the dark world order. So if the light world order under Trump were to play this whole Q thing, which, believe Q or not, I understand either position, frankly, but if Trump is playing nice with AIPAC and Netanyahu until he's got all the pieces in place to take him out definitively, and that's what we're going to see, how much more compelling would that be for the rank and file Christian who sees this wickedness that's very even just not even truly Israeli or Jewish in what Netanyahu has been doing. So you can also see that would play into the dark and light world order deception as well. I'm sorry, I interrupted your thought.
Yeah. Well, what I was gonna say is, I find, especially with like recent events or whatever, I find the Q thing to be so like broken. But I guess if we're just talking specifically, like one beast being maritime law, one being the law of the land. I mean, symbolically, I guess it could work or whatever, but I don't think. Here's my thing. If the Q thing was legit, right? Like, what is the end thing, right? Like, at some point, I guess that the good guys win and restore like some kind of positive, normal social order again, right? Is that kind of like where it goes, or?
Well, that's what they seem to be indicating, that the changing of the guard, the dismantling of the old world order, and it kind of lines up with Revelation, because Revelation says the world will be rejoicing, peace, peace, and then sudden calamity will fall upon them by the justice of God. So, because that peace, if it's a Christless peace,
Right,
is
it's an artificial.
It's an artificial
Interesting.
peace. So that's why I find it all compelling. And I think the Vatican being the Whore of Babylon is a very important piece that I believe will be revealed in the coming within the next few years. Because actually, interestingly, I don't know if you've heard me talk about this before, but in Revelation it says that the colors of the garments of the Whore of Babylon will be scarlet and purple. It didn't say red and purple. It said scarlet and purple. And in the Latin, the official legal prescription for the colors that bishops wear is purple, and cardinals, they wear scarlet. That's literally the name of the color of red that they wear. And what is a harlot in the Old Testament? Every time a harlot, our Lord chastises Israel for being a harlot, it's because it wasn't obviously, it's not actually talking about sexual sin. It's talking about betrayal to the covenant that she had with God. He says, "You went and fornicated with the other nations and their gods." And when you see the Vatican is entertaining all these other religions and doing business through the Vatican Bank, which is also the Whore of Babylon, did business with and had drunk the cup, and all the nations of the world had drunk the cup of her bitterness. It's pretty wild.
I mean, it would make sense, right? The turning against the Bible and the teachings, and I guess it could work, yeah. I don't know. We're gonna
I
find
mean,
out soon
it's
enough.
conjecture.
Yeah,
It's
we're gonna
conjecture.
find out soon enough, right? Like it all makes sense, and it could be a variety of different, where is it? Like a case
And
can be made. So we're gonna find out. I
yeah,
think
and I
so.
think it's important to prayerfully consider what the possible interpretations might be without like latching on to one in particular necessarily too strongly, but to kind of be aware of the possible interpretations. And then as events continue to proceed, things will become clear, that we can be sure of.
Yeah. I don't think you can really hide the end time. Plus the power players. That's kind of what I've been thinking too. Is like with the way everything is going on right now, right? There's not an easy off ramp, right? Like everything just seems to be just all gas and chaos and no honesty, right? It's chaos, and I expect, and I've been thinking, like, who, back in the day, there's always been somebody who could, like, step up and say something, and people listen to that person, right? Like, oh, yeah, that makes, Dave Chappelle said, oh, yeah, that makes a great point during COVID, or this makes a good, Tucker makes a
Mm-hmm.
point during this,
Mm-hmm.
right? But, but who holds that kind of esteem right now that could do it? And I'm like trying to think, and I can't. And then I'm like, but also that's also going to be the dude who is going to be the sketchiest one because that might be the Antichrist, the dude who brings all that like calmness to this. But that's I don't see anyone, so it's kind of like whoever it's going to be feels like it's going to be a left fielder, kind of like, okay, yeah, I don't think it's going to be an American.
But also, I think, if I'm not mistaken, and I might be revealing my ignorance here, but if I'm not mistaken, it's not the Antichrist himself who instills the mark. It's the false prophet that comes after the Antichrist that causes all the world to worship the image of the Antichrist, and then induces all to receive the mark.
I believe the prophet sets up, I believe, everything, and then when the Antichrist comes and declares himself God, and then at that point he has everybody take on the mark, and that's like the sign of allegiance and acceptance or whatever. Because my understanding is the Antichrist at that point is because that's after the head wound, so that's when you have the devil incarnate, in the human body, basically operating.
Yeah, no, that's true. In terms of the Antichrist giving himself over, that's my understanding as well. I shouldn't say that's true. I should say that's my understanding as well, of the Antichrist being fully given over to the power of and the control of the devil. But I think that the false prophet comes after the Antichrist, not before. So it's a full inversion of
No, because
John the Baptist and and Christ. It's an inversion also temporally.
doesn't the false prophet, because you have to have the man of perdition or whatever, like the dude has to lead the way to the Antichrist. Like almost like you could almost, I guess, assume that Trump and Netanyahu could probably dually work the roles together as the two characters. And then I guess in Judaism, they got that kind of similar
Well, and
little dance.
it's not surprising. I mean, it hasn't. It could be just a coincidence, but it could not be. But you know how they say Gog in the Battle of Armageddon, Gog and Magog
Mm-hmm.
come together to war against the people of God, and Magog sounds awfully similar to MAGA, right? That's
Right.
like one letter off. That's not lost on me. So it's an interesting, potentially a coincidence, obviously. But yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean,
Well,
obviously, we won't know until it happens.
well, I mean, the other thing being is also don't get lost in the distraction, right? Like it's also we're seeing all this getting there, and we're putting the eye on Israel being Israel, but if Israel, modern day Israel, is not, olden day Israel, then your eye on what you should be looking on where it should be happening and to who is still kind of offset, you know. So
Hmm. Well, and that's like the neither look here, not there distraction. That's so classic um, of the tactics of the enemy. And this actually kind of indirectly reminds me when you were saying if you're looking at the wrong thing. This kind of indirectly reminds me of something that's been on my mind and heart the last few days. Changing gears a little bit here, um, because also as in the last few minutes while we're talking, like if it's been in the back of my mind, like look, we can't since we can't know for sure, we just have to
hmm
be prayerful and observant
hmm
and not get sucked into rabbit holes and not waste our time with theories that all may be vain nothing. But instead, what's important is our own holiness and our own virtue and our own relationship with the Lord, right? So, given all of that, the thing that reminded me of kind of what's been on my heart the last few days, I've been thinking about. There's old ancient Christian tradition about the what's called the predominant fault. So each and every one of us has a predominant fault. So one flaw that is more of a weakness, as you would say, uh, than anything else, right?
hmm
So like, love of money may not be an issue for some people at all, right?
hmm
Some people it might be their Achilles heel. Some people lust might not be a problem at all. Others it might be their Achilles heel. So we all have a predominant fault from which all of our other defects and flaws flow. But what's interesting is I was listening to a speech, a conference last night or the night before by this exorcist priest called Father Ripperger. He's incredible.
Okay.
He's awesome. If you haven't heard of any of his stuff, I'll send you something.
Okay.
He's wonderful. But what he was saying is, and he's been involved in thousands of exorcisms. He's come face to face with Lucifer himself on 3 occasions. Like he's been in the trenches, and he said he doesn't even want to be an exorcist. He was asked to be an exorcist by his bishop, and so he goes to war, right? But what he said, what he's found and understood is that whatever God wants us to be the strongest in our life, the virtue he wants us to perfect the most is the one he's going to allow us to be threatened and tempted the most, because it's through that tempting and threatening. It's like going to the gym. That's how you get stronger. And when you were talking about the distraction and misdirection just now, it made me think of, it feels like the devil can't create, all he can do is distort.
Right.
So if
And try
God's
to wrong.
given if God's given somebody an immense capacity for love,
hmm
he's going to try to the devil is not going to try to change that. He wants to take that person's greatest strength and twist it and disorder it so that now it's evil, and it's now the strongest drive bringing them away from God. So
Okay.
you can see how the two objectives are actually complementary, and it
hmm
makes perfect sense. So
Yeah. Perspective. Yeah. On what.
yeah, so I pulled an old book out of my library that I haven't looked at in a long time called Practical Examine, and it actually goes through each of the 7 deadly sins, and it has like 10 pages of questions and reflections so that it's basically trying to help lead you in a meditation to try to understand which one is your predominant fault, which is the one that you feel that you struggle with most across many of the different connected and related virtues, in order to be able to identify that so that you can start to actually focus on strengthening, and there's like 5 or 6 at least subsidiary or connected virtues, um, connected to each of the 7 deadly sins. So if you can see that, okay, the primary of, let's take an easy one to understand, pride, right? So if like slander and detraction are related to pride, but they're not pride proper, you can start to weaken that vice of pride in you by indirectly at first. If you still have a hard time humbling yourself, you can at least close your mouth when you want to detract someone else's character, or speak, lie about how good your achievements are, whatever. So you can start to indirectly work on the minor virtues connected to that major one in order to continue to build the strength so that you can finally start to actually address that one head on. It's an incredible book. Anyway, so it's just interesting how, like, I think it's really important, especially as we approach the end of days, and even if it's not the end of days, even if,
Right.
God forbid, I die tomorrow, which not,
Right.
tomorrow's a
Could
gift,
be the
right?
thing, right?
I
Yeah.
could
I
not
feel
wake
you.
up, God forbid. I may not wake up tomorrow, but
Right.
like if I
And
spend
well,
my
anything could
days,
happen, right? Like we could get nuked overnight. We could. Well, I don't believe in nukes, but whatever, dude. The fucking gas main could blow up. A plane could fall on the house, right? Like who knows? A
right,
million things.
right,
A
right.
sinkhole could open up.
But like so, I guess what I was just I think what is important to keep our focus on is that it's really a question of, am I making the most of the opportunity of the temptations that God has allowed me to undergo today? To have I taken advantage of those opportunities to grow in those virtues that are being tested, so that I'm strengthening myself in the gym rather than giving up halfway through a set day after day after day, So I feel like that's a better focus and use of our time and mental energy on the daily than worrying about understanding the nuances of what potentially may or may not come tomorrow regarding Trump, Antichrist, Vatican, whatever, right?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it's all valuable. I'm not saying it's not important to consider and be aware of those things, but balance is important, right? If I'm
Yeah.
forgetting my own walk towards virtue because I'm so stressed about the Vatican and trying to figure out, you know,
Yeah. What's it say? What's it do a man to gain the world or whatever, but lose himself, right? So.
yeah. Another one of my favorite verses is our Lord says, "Fear not the man who can kill the body, but fear the one who can cast you body and soul into hell." And who can do that?
Right.
None other
God.
but than yourself with your own will.
Well, yeah, I guess.
By
Yeah.
your choices, you can send yourself to hell. Right? Work
Yeah.
out your salvation with fear and trembling, says Paul. So, yeah, I don't know, man. It's sobering, and
So,
it's yeah.
what do you think happens outside of this stuff, just as far as like just war related, right? U.S., Iran, where we are, who they are, capabilities. What do you see happening? Do you see us trying to figure out a way to like end this, or do you see this as uh, World War III? Like where do you view it as? What do you
I
think?
don't see World War III. I see Iran, a successful regime change in Iran fairly soon, I believe. Um, and then kind of a coming together of the Middle East in general like we haven't seen in a very long time. And I think a sign of that is that at the UN Security Council, when it was like 13 votes condemning Iran's actions, condemning Iran, and 0 votes against, and neither China or Russia vetoed the Security Council motion to condemn Iran,
Mm-hmm.
and they could have. That was a sign, and also neither of them have gotten involved in the war in defending Iran from what the U.S. is doing. Those are both signs that it's not going to escalate, in my opinion. Because if they had gotten involved, it would escalate. Because Iran's a proxy for both of them. China gets
Mm-hmm.
most of its oil from Iran.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, and Russia has had a very tight relationship with them for a long time. So, I think we're going to see a brokering of peace with Iran with the regime change, and shortly thereafter, or right around the same time, I think we're going to see an end to the Ukrainian-Russian conflict as well. Because I think those are part of the same negotiations between Russia and Trump right now, between Putin and Trump. I mean, we'll see, but that's just kind of what I'm
I don't know.
taking away from things. What do you think?
I don't think we're getting regime change in Iran. You
No?
know? Nah, I don't think that's happening. The only difference, the only thing I don't know is basically it's kind of like the dog bit something it should have. Now you caught it. What are you gonna do with it? That's how I view it, right? So, do you keep trying to latch on until that thing just kicks you in your head and some real damage is done, or do you lick your wounds and try to figure out now what this means for everything else going forward? Because it's not good either. Like, no matter what, we're out the Middle East. That ship has sailed. We showed that we can't protect the Middle East. Our bases have been hit. We didn't protect anyone in there. We wouldn't be allowed to go back in, right? Like, that part's said and done. I see a lot of like talk like we're gonna send navies and people, or we're gonna bomb this little area. None of that's gonna change any of that. That's all kind of like pointless. It's kind of like, you ever play Command and Conquer or Age of Empires? You're just throwing resources, but you're not going to fulfill any ultimate goal, at least with what we're fucking around with, right? And we don't have necessarily the capabilities to go in and change. And I don't think we have the supply lines aren't there, the logistics aren't there, the hearts of the people aren't there. There's just so many different things, down even fuel, right? Like, Trump bit something that he shouldn't have bit. It didn't work out for them, and I believe Israel got us into something that is going to make the U.S. be a lot weaker, right? And I think we're seeing a new world order take place on the stage, and you're seeing a humbling of the U.S. and as this goes on, we'll be like slowly dismantled, and that's how it has to be done in order for a world government. You can't have a superpower on the stage anyways. You got to dismantle it.
You don't think that the world government will come from the U.S. via Palantir and related?
No. Well, we've launched it, right? Like, that kind of stuff is going to come, but no, we're not going to. The structure and the strength and the dominance that we had over the world my whole life is done. Like, we are now on the crash out mode on that. We just don't know it yet. We just don't see it yet. There's a lot of bad repercussion that's coming from this. Like, you can't unring this bell. So that means, like, dominance and deals that we were able to make because we were the big boys on the block, that power is not there. So then that just sends more issues down the line, and that means different things for different things. So there has to be a whole new communication, and then it's a hot fucking mess. In my
Don't
opinion.
you think so? When you say that, though, a contraindication of that, I'm just going to push back a little bit.
Sure.
I think that the general population of Iran is ready to overthrow that. They're ready for regime change. They've demonstrated that over the last 6 months, right?
I don't agree with that. I don't know where that intel is coming from. I haven't seen any honest indicators of that. And I'm looking at that with an open thing. Because me, I don't want some long, prolonged war. I don't want troops on the ground, right? Like,
right.
I would love if Iran was like, yeah, fuck this. We're going to overthrow this. You don't even need U.S. boots on the floor, right? Like, but the thing is, we're going there. It's not because it's strictly because they're not liberating themselves. They're not looking to be liberated. But there's a cultural shift, dude. We're looking at it like Americans and Christians, etc. Right?
Well, about Pahlavi, the son of the dethroned king from 70 years or 50, 60 years ago, whatever.
Yeah,
right?
the Jewish guy.
The Shah. Right?
Yeah, the Jewish guy.
He's very sympathetic. I don't know if he's Jewish, but I know he's sympathetic.
He is. No, he is Jewish, and that's the guy who's trying to weasel and saying like, "Oh, I'm ready to take my spot." No, that guy is.
Well, he and his daughter, he came out of hiding for the first time last June or July before we sent that first airstrike into Iran. And they were meeting in D.C. and they had a whole conference about restoring freedom to the Iranian people. Mm-hmm. So it's been a constant for over a year of him kind of coming out of hiding, working with powers that be to also move and kind of reinvigorate the Iranian people. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it comes out. The other thing
if Iranians wanted regime change, right? Just like the U.S., right? Just like any country, okay? If the people want it, you're going to see it. They hit the fucking streets and like they go out. You don't have to have a propaganda campaign. You don't have to prevent news coverage. You know what I mean? Like, you see it. People are out and swelling in the streets, and they're fucking overtaking embassies, and they're caning their politicians or whatever. We
Well,
watch this time and time and time again. Iran's not doing that.
haven't they been tearing down statues of the Ayatollah? They've changed the flag back to the Persian
No,
flag.
and the U.S., we do this shit and we say it, but and over there, functionally, no. That's the thing. We're not seeing the indicators from them as a people. Like, basically what we're seeing is just like we were told, Iraq and Afghanistan was going to. It's the same pitch that's used every time. We're going to be welcomed with open arms, and everyone's going to be like, yeah, and they're going to throw off the shackles. And then, we use that for Venezuela, and we use that for Cuba. And, like, dude, like, these people aren't here like, hey, U.S., come. No, that's not how it works. It's just the line that we give so that we can get people to follow on and sign up to these wars and these ideas. Because what better way from a point of virtue? We're bringing freedom. We're bringing this. No, dude, we ain't bringing shit, dude. Like, at all. We should stay out of it.
I mean, I think that's, for me, what I've understood is that they have been in the streets, and they have been saying, and even Trump said, look, I'm not. Even some of them said, we're glad that Trump hasn't intervened yet, because this is a freedom that we have to win for ourselves. Like, I don't know if you've seen any of those videos that have been leaked on X and stuff like that from inside Iran, and like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people in the streets day after day, protesting against the regime, to the point where the regime had to kill like 30,000 people or something. In order to,
and that's another thing.
That could all be propaganda. I mean,
yeah, I question
right?
that because Osmond Gold, who I like, went down that whole aspect of things too. But again, I question that. I push back on that data, right? That's kind of like calling Kent, who just resigned, like all of a sudden he's a spy and shit, right? Like, there's now prove the negative, right?
Well,
like it feels a lot like that, right? Like, okay, we're this.
I
stuff.
think
Not
from
signs, you. I'm just saying in general.
No, I get you. I get you. I think I think signs exterior to that seem to be indicators of that, the truth of that information, is the fact that every other Middle Eastern country has condemned Iran and distanced themselves. That to me is a sign that Iran's going to flip. The fact that China and Russia have not backed this current regime, that's a sign that it's going to flip. The fact that Trump is not going in with boots on the ground yet, at least, hopefully not, but the fact that hasn't been done yet, and there hasn't been an Operation Desert Storm,
because it will be a meat grinder. Who was it? Was it Iran? Iran took a 1,000,000-man army and sent it into, or Iraq took like a 1,000,000-man army and sent it into Iran, and it just got fucking chewed up, right? Like, brrr, game over, right? Like the Persians, like that's kind of like their thing.
Yeah.
So our whatever on the group boots crap that we would be sending isn't gonna work, right? Like that's not how you're gonna win that. Space-wise, it's huge. How many times do we have to do the thing where you learn that you can't occupy a country to freedom, right? And that I'm not convinced that the people of Iran, because Iran has a religious leader and a president, right? Like there's two things going on over there, right?
Correct.
I'm not convinced that the people of Iran are oppressed or as evil as we get pitched. Right, that's just and I believe that this whole concept of like we're liberating them comes up whenever we need backing to poke, right? That we're doing the good thing. I think that if Iran really was ready, they're gonna throw it off. They'll pop it off. They'll have their independence. We're not doing anything over there except spending money, costing lives, and we win nothing when it's all said and done. We win nothing.
And even though I disagree with the thesis that you're arguing for, I will say that an indication of that your thesis may be correct against my opinion is the fact that Iran is one of the last handful of countries. It may be one of the last one or two. I'm not sure exactly. I haven't kept track of it like I used to. That doesn't yet have a Rothschild-controlled central bank.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's just one of the 7 countries, the last 7 that were named 10, 15, or no, maybe 20, 30 years ago, that were the last 7 that didn't have a Rothschild-controlled central bank. Every single one of those over the last couple decades have been completely dismantled and have been forced to a regime change and an installation of a central bank.
It's the same thing. There's some
that,
poor people who are oppressed by this evil person, and said evil person is always the most evil, and we have to all the things.
And thanks to Netanyahu, who wisely indicated to us where these problems were, we were able to do the humanitarian thing, go drop bombs and liberate the poor oppressed people. Yeah,
right. And then when you try to do the argument of imminent threat, right, over 47 years, right? Well, anyone who ever has even dealt with the slightest bit of law understands like what imminent means, right? So imminent, that's the difference. Imminent is the difference between an assault charge or not, right? Like it's a basis, and it's important.
And to your point, it's the same garbage that we've been pushed with global warming. Oh, within 10
Right.
years, every 5 years, they tell us within 10 years the sea levels will rise, and Nevada or whatever, like Georgia's going to be waterfront because Florida's going to be under the sea, type of thing. Yeah. So
I don't trust any of it. And to be honest with you, what's also to say like Iran's not in on the thing, right? Like, like we could also be getting conned as a part of, hey, this is how we're taking apart the U.S. and we're pulling everybody out of the Middle East or whatever. But we'll do it under this auspice. It's not like we're just packing shit up and going like Joe Biden was like, later Afghanistan, enjoy all the free shit,
Now we have
right, we did something, it didn't work out, we had to fall back,
Now we have
like,
plausible deniability and alibi
Right.
for a justifiable
Right.
reason for leaving.
But Iran, here's the thing, to push back on anything with these other countries, right? Like these other countries allowed the U.S. to have bases. These other countries were about to be working with the U.S. And Iran flung a bunch of missiles over at these places, right? And Iran said basically, shit's gonna pop off. If you want to play, there's plenty to go around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
That's what they said.
yeah.
There's plenty to go around. Do you want to play? Because we'll just fucking launch missiles at you. Let's see how you work out, right? So a lot of these countries have been like, okay, as far as the UN goes, I don't really care about the UN. I think we should be out of the UN. I don't believe, I hear too much, like on TV a lot recently too, of the whole concept of global citizen. I don't believe in global citizens. I believe in, like, we're Americans, and I believe we should be isolationist, right? Like, leave everybody.
Every country should mind its own business. Yeah,
Yep.
I agree with that.
You come and you pick on us, or you do something, then there's, like, that's the only reason I think there should be wars. Like.
Well, yeah, and the irony of kind of what we were talking about earlier with human freedom too. The irony is that so God allowed free will, which brought about so much evil in this world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yet, under the auspices of preventing evil, the governments of men are restricting freedom. The very thing that God gave us, understanding what the consequences would be because he valued free expression and love, is the very thing that our governments, under false pretenses, are limiting.
Right. And because the people, right, consent to it. They imply it and they consent. They allow it, right? Kind of like during the 90s when everybody was watching Cops and police were kicking down people's doors and eroding the Fourth Amendment and all that. And we were all like cool with it, right? And that kind of prevailed in the society. And here we are a little bit more, like it's just more of.
Yeah, no, it's true. Meyer says Iran has all this planned out for the last 45 years. None of this is a coincidence.
Have you heard there was it was millennial something millennial 2001. There was a military exercise where there was a war game between the United States and Iran. That was the war game. And they went and they got this badass dude, this General Van Riper, this Marine, right? And they let him controlled the opposing force, right? And it was the U.S. against Iran. And the U.S. had the Bush Doctrine in place. So just like we did now, the preemptive attack, right? So Van Ripen knew that, okay? So he utilized all of the deficiencies plus his knowledge to kick the shit out of us, okay? Basically, they use the call to prayer as kind of like the code and the alerts on when to fire. They overwhelmed with speedboats, the Navy, and missiles, etc. Right? Like everything we're seeing, a lot of it happened during this thing. The U.S. stopped the war game. Okay, they stopped the war game and like shut it down, and then restarted. And they're like, you can't do any of that. You can't
have to play
do
by
any
our
of
rules.
That. Yeah, you know, and this was in 2001, 2002, or whatever.
Interesting.
Right? So we've seen all this. We knew how Iran was going to act. There's Zerg. If you ever played Minecraft or no, not Minecraft, StarCraft. You know, if you know what StarCraft is, it's kind of like a
familiar,
Age of the Empires kind of war game, right?
Yeah.
Well, there's a fraction and it is called the Zerg, right? So, and what that is basically their mentality is you get a lot and you throw a lot at it, right?
Yeah.
And you just overwhelm
a lot
in
of
numbers.
cheap units to overwhelm.
Yep, yeah. And that's Iran, and Iran will use that on the speedboats on the water, small, cheap, high explosive speedboats that it's going to be hard for you to track and get all of them. So shit's going to come through. They're going to do that with the drones in the air. You know, like the tanks. That's their mentality. And then they're also like the turtle, right? So they're not the existential threat because they're not setting up to go outwards necessarily. They bunker and defend where they are on the outskirts. Right. And so when you come in, that's the whole thing. You're the meat grinder and they're hitting everything on the outskirts and then you get chewed up going in. That's a turtle mentality, right? So so that alone should tell you that we're not going to see an outward aggression. Israel would be it. North Korea.
I'm going to interrupt you for just a second. Mm-hmm. Keep going. I'm going to be right back. I have to run and take care of something. I have to use a restroom.
Sure.
That's not just full disclosure. So I don't want to cut short the conversation though. So I will be right back in like a minute and a half. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No problem. No problem.
So sorry, everybody. I'll be right back.
All right.
But I don't know if you can see Meyer's comments, but.
Here, I actually got to pull up the thing. I haven't seen any of the
there
comments,
you go.
So I should probably look through and see what those say too, guys. Sorry.
I'll be right
so
back.
Let's see who's all up in here. So we got Myers and Dead Game and Peace Jen and Haywood and Shiva. Who else we got in here that's talked on the thing? All right, so that's you guys. What's up, guys? It's good to see you. I don't know. What's your guys' thoughts? Where are you guys in all of this? You know, what do you think? Let's see. He played Star Fox, very Japanese style of Iran. Yeah, you know, like if this was StarCraft, right? Like Iran would be the Zerg, America would be the, I don't know, what do they call the Space Marines or the GDI or whatever, but not the Protos, not the little alien dudes with the blue beams and shit, right? But yeah, now we don't even have supply lines in order to go over there. Where do you bring your supplies to towards the conflict, right? Supply lines are very important. Tepler, what's up, brother? I think I want to hear more of your perspective on this. Right on. So, like, if all the bases are getting attacked in the Middle East, right, that means we can't bring supplies into those bases, which means we're not resupplying there, which means that supply lines have to actually go further back. So then you got more time from in the action and coming back for refill, so there's a lot of downtime there, which gives them time to fortify defenses, all while back. Like, it's not a winning strategy, you know? I mean, unless the U.S. essentially committed to, like, you know, nukes or the equivalent of whatever, and they're just like, we're just going to just nonstop carpet bomb every fucking inch of that place, you don't win that war. So that's why I don't understand, like, why to do it, because it becomes a war of attrition no matter which way you go. We can't get the supplies there, you know. It just it's so exhausting, and then the expense. Where are we going to get the rest of this money too? You know, like look at the money that we spend so many different ways. Russia, the USSR, I believe is what it was back in the day, right? And when they were fighting, the Russians were in Afghanistan, right? And then they went broke. And then we thought, hey, why don't we start a war in the Persian Gulf? You know, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
How much time should a regime change take? It shouldn't take that long. If it was going to happen, if a regime change was actually going to happen, right? Like what are we now? 2 weeks in, whatever. I mean, you would see signs that it was well underway, right? When we initially had attacked and everything, you would see the people supporting, and then because the thing is, it's hard to fight on two fronts. You can't fight internally and externally. Right? I mean, you got to be like a Hannibal Buress kind of genius, you know, to be able to work those kind of tactics, right? Like, so usually you don't have a fire going on in house while you're dealing with a bunch of stuff externally. So that's another thing that tells us with how accurate and how little pressure. They don't have any pressure going on inside.
But is that why the U.S. chose to attack when it did? Because they have the pressure going on inside?
No, I'm saying they don't have the pressure. They don't have the pressure going on inside. If they did, we would see more change, right? Like you would see a breakdown. You would see some kind of chunk. There would have been a concession, like a real breakdown somewhere, right? Even if it was like, you know, a quarter of a loss on something, but you're not seeing that anywhere. If I'm not seeing a loss in resources, capabilities, you know, something like that, then all I'm seeing is that you hit the grinder. You didn't really achieve anything, right? And Iran, they're fine because even geopolitically, they're saying, hey, for everybody who isn't fucking with us, your oil's coming through. We're not stopping that. But for the U.S., you're not getting any of this. And if you try to do whatever, we got mines up in here. Good luck on getting on that. Plus, if you want to go down and thing, we'll just start throwing missiles in that general area, we're going to hit it, right? And
well,
I mean, none of that's going to get insured. So economically, they're playing it too.
Well, what's
they understand
interesting?
resources.
So, a couple things that are interesting about that I think are contraindicators to what you're saying. And again, I mean, you could be right. I'm just saying from what I'm seeing, when we attacked, I forget the name of the island, but it's.
It starts with Crips, or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. When the U.S. bombed it, it destroyed all military installations on the island, but left intact all of the oil and gas installations.
Mm-hmm.
And all the infrastructure for economic infrastructure, it kept intact, but we just took out the military pieces. That, to me, is an indicator that Trump is planning to facilitate a regime change. Because you need to have a stable economy to sustain a regime change, right? Mm-hmm. And then another thing is apparently there are no mines yet. There are still ships passing through Hormuz. The Iran just said that Israel and American ships are not allowed through. Everybody else is fine. Kind of to your point on one hand, but also. I don't think any U.S. tankers ever went through there anyways. We always go through intermediaries. And then lastly,
but a majority of the oil comes out of there to the market, and we're saying fuck you. We're not letting any of that oil even go. But we didn't even, or they were kind of saying that, but they didn't even really have to, because what really happened was the insurance companies said that's too hot. We're not letting you guys go and get any oil, because if you guys sink and whatever and all this shit goes, that costs too much money for us. So that's really where the economic pressure started. That's really what we're looking at.
That's the interesting thing that I'll have to send you this video. I shared it with I shared it with Ted, I think, the other day. Ted and the boys. But there's actually an interesting report that I saw that the Lloyd's of London is who you're referring to, who insures all the tankers. They immediately, when the region got hot, they do, as they have always done, in order to pull different levers to maintain their economic control, they removed insurance on all the tankers. Trump immediately, within a day or two, signed an executive order and ordered the U.S. to provide insurance. What did they call it? There was like a. Anyways, they provided insurance for all the tankers from the U.S. Treasury.
Which is why you didn't see you saw the oil price rebound real quick.
Because it was reinstated.
Right.
Yeah, the safety for the ships was reinstated. So
But
it shows, to me, it shows.
But the heat being over there that nobody's willing to go through, because Iran's also got fucking mines up in, so they're saying,
But ships are still going through, from what I understand, from the radar.
Not our shit though. You know what I mean? Not the stuff that's kind of friendly to us, but China and everyone. And what's interesting is, even when all this went down, that's the other thing Trump did with Russia, because he caught something that what the hell was he going to do? Like the dog bites the car and it catches the bumper. Now what are you going to do that you got the car, right? Like you can't regime change Iran, right? You can't. It's not going to do it. So you have that going on. I don't think he expected them to hit him with the oil response. I don't think they expected that. Honestly,
I'm sure. I can't believe that. I don't think there's any way that the U.S. didn't understand that would be the immediate first response.
No, because we just went through and popped them. I think Trump thought he was going to do. I think what we're seeing is like that video where you see the dude who barks at the kid all the time and pushes them or smacks them and says some shit. And then, they knew this was bullshit. There was no reason to engage in this. This was bullshit. And they pushed back, especially after the nuclear sites that they let get fucking hit, right? And on top of that, then you kill their religious leader, right? The religious leader. That's something, right?
But that's not Islam is not the religion of Iran. Has never been.
No. In Iran, the Ayatollah is their religious leader, not the president. There's two auspices there.
No, I understand. But what I'm saying is, the Iranian people are not a Muslim people. The regime has been Muslim overlords of a predominantly historically non-Muslim nation. Iran has been either Christian or Zoroastrian. It's actually the most ancient religion on earth is Zoroastrian.
Yeah, I know it's Zoroastrian.
Yeah. So I think that I think even Vince would say this, is that the people are not. It's not an Islamic country. It's been an Islamic regime installed by the globalists years ago, but not an Islamic people. But I don't know. I mean, every game theory that I've ever seen of people kind of wargaming out and theorizing about what war with Iran would look like, like those little YouTube videos where people every single one of them shows Iran. One of the first responses by Iran would be to close the Strait of Hormuz. I don't see how
every war from the beginning of our country, as far even back with Britain, right? You could have press and all that, right? This war, everything about it is about deception, is about lying, is about preventing truth. And the only reason you do that is because it doesn't add up, right? It doesn't add up because there's a lie. So the intentions aren't there. The stories that they're telling us aren't there. They don't let the press there.
You know what I mean? It could all be smoke and mirrors. Fully accept that.
It's a broken thing.
I just don't. I have a hard time believing that the U.S. under Trump or anybody else would not expect the Strait of Hormuz to be closed.
I don't think.
I think first response.
No, I think they thought that they were going to do this and that Iran was going to take it. And Iran was going to come to the table. I think they thought they were going to do this almost like to bully Iran into the table and this is what we want. Otherwise, there's going to be war. And I think
you mean like what they did last year, where they just fired a handful
yeah,
of rockets and nothing happened?
And I think they were using this to like ramp that up and being like, hey, like come here and this is what you're gonna do, or shit's about to roll. And I think Iran just kind of called their bluff early, and they weren't ready for that. And that's why everything's fucked up. You don't have anything in the reserves. I mean, just you're not operationally ready. And I'm sorry, dude. God bless our military and all that. But our military right now, like the people that you see dying, on the front lines, like they don't look operational like the soldiers we had in the 90s and the 2000s, dude. Like we got to be realistic on that too, dude. Like there's a lot more form and focus. And now I'm seeing these frumpy ass people who you look at them and you say, man, you are not, nobody should be putting you in that spot, certainly if it's not absolutely like needed. These people are fucking far from it, dude. Well, so like there's that too.
The Biden admin certainly did a number on our military to weaken it. That's
our oil reserves are gone. We've given all of our weapons away between Israel and Ukraine, right? Like we've overextended, and then financially we're giving away all of our money, right? And we're not just giving away the money, we're giving away our military equipment, right? So you need this to fight your war, you need these planes to fight your war, you need these weapons to fight your war, you need this ammo to fight your war. You know what I mean? So we're giving away our stuff too. The problem with that, and that's why Trump had to enact the manufacturing clause, because shit has to get made. We don't have enough of it. So now we need focus on that, because again, it's a resource thing. And if it had been planned, your resources would be in order, because you would need those resources to go further. And that's why I also think, there's kind of like stagnant. And I don't think any of those local nations expected Iran to be like, hey, fuck you. Here's some missiles. Figure it out. You want to play? Like they didn't expect that. 100% they didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Because they were all like, oh, you notice how France and all those guys were like, we're coming with our Navy. Remember that? They were coming in the UK. They were sending people, choo-choo. And then, oh, you guys are doing that? Well, like, on second thought, we're going to write you a very strongly worded letter. And we're going to kind of sit here and, watch. So there's that, too.
Well, and then would you see what Trump's little backhand at England? He said England, who used to be our closest ally,
yeah,
because they didn't back us up.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, right? And right before Israel, that was what you heard all the time too, right? Especially when is our closest ally, closest ally, closest ally. Great. I'm tired of hearing closest allies, right? Like I just want them to like take care of the veterans and the poor people here. And
I agree with that.
Everything that's going on, instead of all the other places and all of the other wars. Like there's just so much that we could just apply some basics here, dude. Like there's people.
What do you think about? Because no, I agree with you 100% on the basics and taking care of our own people first, which Trump campaigned on and claimed to be, but I'd like to see it. But again, kind of just in the back of my head, and we do kind of have to start to wrap up a little bit here, but the fact that Trump was on the phone with Putin for a couple hours and then removed sanctions, some of the sanctions that were against Russia, and then he was also on the phone with Xi in China, and had some negotiation with them, and neither of them have gotten involved in this war to back up Iran, I think is telling. Either that means that China and Russia are confident that Iran will be able to hold its own, which I feel is doubtful, or there's something larger afoot, and it has to do with a major power shift in the financial sectors.
Well, there's that too, because the U.S. dollar is going away too.
From the city of London to something kind of more digital.
Yeah. As far as Russia and China, right? Like, first off, you got to remember, Trump called Russia. Russia didn't call Trump, right? And he called Russia mainly because of the oil and because we put them under the whole oil sanction thing after Nord Stream pipeline, which was that bogus, right? Anyways, so these are all things that work. But at the same point, right? Like you want to pacify Russia because one, Trump needs some of that international pressure off of him because all of a sudden energy was just about to get squeezed out, right? Hey, let's play nice on some areas, guys. Whoops. Let's let's not get too rash. Okay, so you get that aspect. Oh, and then so Russia at the same point, while we're occupied here and we have to focus here, right? What's to prevent Russia from saying, hey, you know what? I'm fucking tired of you, Ukraine, and 100% I got the right to just fight you and like snuff you out. And then China's like, yeah, and Taiwan, we've been waiting for your bitch ass for a while too, right? And what are you trying to tell us, USA? Because we see you over there in Iran, right? And we all got a defense pack, right? Like they do. They all have a defense pack, right? They just haven't invoked it, but they've all said, hey, like push comes to shove, we will jump in. So we know that, right? And at the same point, our allies have shown us, and we've shown them, like it's a bad relationship. It's old. It's worn out, So it's very possible that you end up going into like a three-front war where you got to deal with Russia. Well, actually four, right? You would have to deal with Russia. You'd have to deal with China. You would have to deal with North Korea. And you would have to deal with Iran. And give or take whoever else wants to jump in. And that's how you end up in your world war, right? But all those guys are connected, and like we can't be silly and not forget that. And at any given point, they understand that there's an opportunity for that power shift, right? The dollar is going to bed. Good night, right? So that global market's going away. The BRIC system, they want that on the table anyways, right? So if we're embroiled in a battle with Iran and we're hemorrhaging money and we're hemorrhaging soldiers and we're showing our military capabilities, right? Why would they interrupt us? They would just wait. If it's like back in the day with Batman, right? In the Batman comics, when Bane wanted to defeat Batman, he freed everybody from Arkham Asylum, right? And Batman had to go around and he had to catch the Joker and the Penguin and all these big name people, right? It was death by 1,000 cuts. And then when Batman was bruised and tired and exhausted and he had just brought back sanity, then Bane comes to him, and then Bane fights him, and then Bane breaks him, right? Yeah. So, like, that analogy, I think, is the strategy that is being utilized on the U.S. And I think that it's just a matter of time that before we see, like, united opposition with those guys against us. And at the same point, you already see France and the UK and all these guys, it's fracturing, right? That whole NATO relationship. That's what is also needed to pull the U.S. down from the gigantic power, right? And then
the oppressive power that it's been. Meyer says, but don't you think all those countries were in deals with us for protecting them, and just as allies, they all want to see the USA fail? That would be for their benefit. What is anyone gaining right now with Trump's actions? Trump has put pressure on everyone in an economic way, and now he is not helping it. Why would anyone actually help? Wouldn't you want to use the momentum to punish the USA?
On their side, they would. That is if you are Iran, if you are one of the Middle Eastern nations, if you're an enemy of the United States, right? Like that's where they're recognizing.
Do you think Russia and China are just waiting for the U.S. to weaken itself more in this prolonged battle with Iran before they strike back?
Yes,
is that what you're
because we know we don't have our reserves, right? It's a resource. We're utilizing resources. They've used no resources. China and Russia, no resources. No resources.
We have one of the most one of the largest untapped oil fields in the world.
Right. Okay, but we're gonna have to get that up and refined, and then actually into the market. Right. That's gonna take some time. That's not something that we're gonna be able to just like pop the top of the beer and guzzle it down. You know what I mean? So
Wasn't
like,
a lot of that infrastructure built part of the way, if not most of the way, under Trump in Trump's first term, and it was just turned off under Biden? So it's not like we'd be going to raw land to do it, right?
it's it's gonna take time to do it. It's not gonna be an overnight thing. So that's the point, right? Like whether
Yeah.
we can or can't, right?
I
It's
just
a matter
feel-
of resources, right? Like
Yeah.
where are you gonna do? Where are we manufacturing? Where are we getting the raw materials and the raw minerals, right? That's another point of tension. Is the AI chips, right? And the raw minerals that are needed for the AI chips, which is another reason why there's the contention for like Greenland and all that, because we need resources and materials that are native there, to make and things that will help us stay a superpower and stay dominant, right? However, Africa and Asia are rich with a lot of these kind of things that, like, so in some areas but on this like next stage where AI and silicone and all that, there's stuff that we seem to have a deficiency going. So
I mean, you make valid points. It's interesting to think about.
we also only have a 300 million man population, right? And then realistically, if a third of those are kids, right? Let's say roughly a third of those are kids and elderly, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe 200 million capable people, right? How many
Thanks.
of those
Thanks for the repost and like, Infinite. Appreciate you, man.
how many of those people can you throw into the grinder against Iran and China and Russia and still be able to keep a country stabilized and going and have, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of stuff that goes on when something like this. This is why you don't start world wars, because it gets out of hand really fast. Like all the things, they're social, like it's meant to knock us out. We're going to go into whatever happened to Germany with the recession and depression, and like we're doing that. We're doing USSR. Like we are going to be a poor, broke, third world essentially nation trying to claw its way back up. A lot of us will be, at least. But manufacturing, all that's gone. What do we have? And as a matter of fact, we're still importing people to compete in markets. Like it's so broken.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. We've been weakened a lot economically. No, I mean, I think you make a lot of valid points. I go back in my mind to Alice Bailey's work called The Externalization of the Hierarchy, where she talked about the three world wars that would come. That she accurately described both the first two world wars, and she said the third will be fought in the minds of men primarily. So this is part of why I don't think we're going to see a full. She also said that there would be the U.S. working closely with her sister country, Saudi Arabia, would work to create a United States of the Middle East. And that would be done first because it's more developed, and then lastly, the United States of Africa would be created because that's the most difficult, because it's the least developed cultures and people. And so that was their plan for the world. And the third world would be fought in the minds of men, because I think a lot of this is smoke and mirrors. I don't know how much is actually going on in Iran, frankly. I don't know how much of this is just positioning and manipulations via of information via the elite, kind of like what you were saying before. Like, how much of the footage of Iranians protesting in the streets is real? How many of these rockets that we saw fall on Israel, last year, was real? How many, et cetera. So,
Albert Pike also predicted all three world wars, right? And you can go and look up the letter is actually where it was in. He had written it into a thing.
Yeah.
But for the third war, he talks about it starting and being used up in the Muslim nations, right? Like that's where everything whips up, and that's where it goes. And if I remember correctly, it involves Russia. So like I would also look at that as circumstantial of like indicators that are all kind of sharpened. Not that it's guaranteed, but if these things are designed right, like if these things are planned in advance, or have system, and he was writing about that, and my
Yeah.
understanding is the only reason we know that is because like the guy who was traveling with the letter or whatever died or something along the way, and I think that's how they ended up getting the
Yeah.
letter,
Yeah. Exactly.
out in the first place, right? So, I mean, it's not like somebody's writing as like a prophecy, like, hey, it's kind of like it almost
Well,
is
but
like
it's what
intercepted communication.
correct. Yeah, it's showing what they're planning. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, not
My,
like somebody. Yeah.
Meyer says, you know who predicted this war? Jonah and Vince. That's funny. It's true. Yeah, I
Well,
mean, Vince and I had said it was what 6 months ago, Meyer, or so. I don't remember when it was exactly. We had said that we believed that, and maybe it was just 2-3 months ago, back in February. Maybe it was. No, I don't remember. But anyways, we had said that it was going to be that the U.S. was going to actively get involved. It was when we saw the starts of the riots. Perhaps it was around New Year's that we saw the start to the riots in November, December. Yeah, that we saw the beginning of the riots and the uprising of the people in Iran. That we had that little prediction session. There's on Phone Booth Podcast for those watching. On phoneboothpodcast.substack.com. If you're a subscriber, you don't have to be paid. We'd appreciate it, obviously. But if you just subscribe, even as a free user, you can still see the subscription-only content. There's a conversation back in November, December, probably December, I think, where Meyer, Vince, and I on the Philosopher King podcast here, we had a conversation about and gave our predictions of what to expect with Iran. So Vince and I both thought that the U.S. would get involved and a regime change would be successful. And it would be a positive thing for the region and a positive thing for the U.S. So we'll see. The first one's come true.
listen,
But
I hope so. I hope that if the people of Iran, like the people of them, like they want change and they don't want the government that they have, like, dude, I wish all people have the government that represents them, right? And that they're willing to
right,
fight for and go. Like, so, and plus, if they do that, I'm down for, I don't like war. I don't want to fight. I don't, right? And I'm more worried that we're not going over there under these noble things and that the whole concept is going to get really lost. And at some point, we are going to start bombing indiscriminately. And it's going to be like, oh, nope, like, that's a military base. They hide bad guys there. It was a, like
yeah, yeah,
I'm worried that we're gonna start going down that. So I would prefer to be wrong and it not go that way. And that those people
yeah.
are all like, yeah, hey, fuck this dude, and let's tear the place down and
And
restart.
obviously, it's kind of
If that's
I
what
mean,
they want.
it's kind of in a similar vein to what we're talking about before with the apocalypse and the end times. Like we can conjecture and we can, but ultimately it's hard to tell what will come and what will or will not be.
Right.
And we have hopes for certain outcomes, but only time will tell.
Based on the
My
information of what we know and view, yeah.
Meyer said I said it'll never happen. I was wrong, and so I took some time off. Is that why there's been no podcast from you? Obviously, we're going there for noble ideas.
Templar, can you
Templar,
keep
can
waving?
you keep waving your hands? It looks like you're wearing a cape. That's funny. That's funny. Well, Templar, I appreciate you, man, and I hope
thanks, buddy.
I hope you're wrong because I think it'll be better for the U.S. and the world. I think if you are wrong, but I can see your points. I think they're valid. I just hope you're wrong.
Yeah. And I would say this is like a parting thing. I mean, I hope I'm wrong too, but let's say I'm right? So if
Yeah.
I'm right, then I would say like dedicate as much of your spring and summer and fall, hopefully no shit pops off during that to make sure that you're good. And just prep yourself in case, but like be ready for things, but you don't have to live to be scared. Just make sure that you got yourself if it goes wrong, be ready. if it
So
doesn't, great.
word on the street, it's a good idea to live in an RV that you can just drive to another part of the country if it gets rough in that.
Dude. But it is too, right? I mean, it is.
I mean, coincidentally, providentially, it might just be the perfect timing for me.
Could be.
Meyer says, I love watching you two boys. Good job. I love the perspectives. And don't forget, phoneboothpodcast.substack.com.
Yeah.
Baby.
That's
Well, I
what's
appreciate all you guys for the chats and interactions. Templar, always
What's
a
up,
pleasure, sir. We got to do this more often, man.
Yeah, we
I love
do.
I love your perspectives.
Right back at you.
I love how you articulate it too, and I love that you passionately push back, but and we can push back on each other always with respect.
Right,
Even
right.
when we disagree. I think it's one of the most beautiful things that between two men that can exist is that relationship where you respect each other enough to challenge each other on your perspective.
Yeah,
So,
without being over like, oh, you're blah blah blah. Yeah, 100,
I
dude.
I
And right
appreciate
back
it
at you.
100%, man. Yeah. So.
And I feel the
Um,
same because I think you're a super smart dude, and I enjoy your take on stuff. And you will pose things that I have to think about and say, well, yeah, that makes sense, and it isn't contrary. So it's like I wonder how that's gonna go. So it is always good to have that, and anytime you
Yeah.
can be around somebody who will challenge what you think in a way that it's like, well, that is feasible, even if I don't think that's going to happen, that's feasible. So I mean, I at least got to keep that in the calculations,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
like, I mean, it's legit, it could happen, so
Yep.
don't be dumb.
Yeah, I love it. Any parting thoughts for the people here, Templar?
Nah, I love these people. Appreciate y'all. I'm sure everybody at Phone Booth enjoys you guys, man. But no, dude,
Yeah,
it's awesome,
yeah.
man. Just thanks for hanging out.
I love it. I love it. Well, everybody, don't forget, got Cup of Joan in the mornings at 8 o'clock every morning. We start reading at about 8:10. Thanks, Foray, for always being here. Thank you, everybody.
Hold on. Speaking
Remember-
of that,
Yeah.
since I'm here and I got a direct connect with you on that. So you say 8 o'clock, but it's 7 o'clock in the morning my time up over here.
That's fair. It's true.
So it's so
8
early,
EST.
bro. Like,
I
oh,
know. Well, you know why I do that, though?
Huh.
That's because that way, as soon as you wake up, you can listen to it with your cup of Joe.
like sometimes you're like, I don't get up to like 8:30, but I see the thing and it's usually up. But yeah, I got you.
Yeah.
Need to hit you like
Yeah.
an alarm clock. You know?
I know, right? Snooze. Snooze.
No. When it turns on, like that's time to wake up.
Oh, yeah.
Cup of
Yeah.
Jonah.
There you go. I'm just trying to make, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. I'm just trying to help you out, bro.
Right on, man.
With my early morning notifications for you.
I have actually gotten to catch a few, so like I do
Nice,
like it.
nice.
So I appreciate the fact that you're able to go through like kind of deeper literature, but like bite-sized kind of articulable ways.
Yeah. It is pretty dense sometimes, and I know we're kind of halfway through actually this first volume, and I'm really excited because I think we're gonna pause on the really philosophically intense and precise stuff after this first volume, and we're gonna read something like the Confessions of Saint Augustine. Have you read that? Dude, it is such an inspirational book. It's basically Saint Augustine of Hippo, who was in 4th century, right? That's when he lived. So he was much closer to our Lord, one of the early Christians, you could say. And he's basically just sharing his experience and his walk in his life. But he was an orator. He like studied like he was a professional speaker. Like so the way that he ties together thoughts and ideas and the way that he expresses his walk
It's
of
like
faith.
an art.
Oh man, it is so cool. It's beautiful. It's inspiring. So I think we're going to take a break from the philosophically dense stuff, go to something more inspirational. And you know what they say, that like St. Thomas, who's very much more intellectually rigorous, his ideas speak and inform the mind. So a good logical argument like Aristotle would present informs the mind. But a good rhetorician like Augustine or Cicero or somebody of that kind, the rhetoric isn't always precise or philosophically precise or theologically precise maybe, but because its intention is actually to move the heart.
Right. To
So
stir
it's
something
kind of
up, to get you kind of going, to really
it's
get
kind
you.
of yeah. So I heard this that is kind of a funny little comment that every good homily or sermon has 7 heresies in it. In other words, you can't make all the necessary distinctions and define things precisely in a homily if you're trying to inspire people to amend their lives and live better lives and more virtuous and whatever, right? So it's just kind of neat. So I'm going to try to incorporate and bring some balance because Cup of Jonah is a bit intense, and I recognize that. So I really appreciate all the people that have gotten into the weeds with me and really kind of grabbed the bull by the horn, so to speak, because it's not easy sometimes. It's very nuanced conceptions. But this morning was cool, actually. I said, and if you haven't seen it yet, guys, this morning was on whether or not there's evil in God, and we talked about that earlier in this cast, Templar. But I think that is one of the most important concepts for people to really ponder today in today's day and age. And so it was even though it was only a page and a half reading from Thomas, the podcast, I mean the stream this morning was 40 minutes because there was enough to talk about in terms of context and related thoughts and ideas that we were kind of wrestling with. So I think so if people haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend it, especially this morning's episode of Cup of Jonah. But all that being said, make sure you guys check out and be there for our live stream on Saturday at 7 p.m. Remember, last hour we're giving the link out for any one of you guys to jump in, and that includes you, Templar. I know you're part of the family already, but you and Meyer and anybody else, Eric, what's up, buddy? So anyone can jump on and just kind of riff with us there towards the end. So
No. I'm trying to keep my black pill off the table too much, Like I do understand that black pilling isn't necessarily an acquired taste for everybody, so I don't want to overly.
Fair, but you know what though? Sometimes what they say is a joy shared is doubled and a sorrow shared is halved. So sometimes if you're feeling in a black pill mood, it's worth talking to people that are similar minded but different, are feeling differently, to help kind of adjust the perspective or give you another perspective to consider to lighten the load of that black pill, so I encourage you there.
It's a good point.
The only other thing I wanted to say as kind of a final point, just as kind of a fun fact that I learned today, is the Wachowski brothers who made the Matrix movies.
Yeah, the sisters.
They're both transgender, right?
Right.
Did you know that they explicitly said in some of their commentary or interviews or whatever, I don't know exactly the format that they gave it, but they said that the red pill for them was symbolic of the hormone treatment that they took in their transitioning. And so it was basically what they were saying, waking up to the truth was them transitioning from the bodies that they were born in to the totally messed up. It's almost like a total mockery and troll on all the red pillars, the truthers, who are like, oh, take the red pill, and they're like, tee hee. That's crazy.
But, yeah. Well, I mean, the good thing is that they, the art kind of got created, right? And so the artist may have certain things that he built into it, but if the audience interprets it a different way, that'll work. But yeah, that's Hollywood though, right? That's what they do. It's the same concept of why they get a lot of people who you end up finding out later are gay, right? But they're the main stars. Well, because now you have a gay feminine dude is your action star, right? Like that's who you're over there paying your dollars and supporting. It's kind of like their way to make fun of you, kind of like, haha. Gotcha.
Yeah. Well, so your comment, the art was created, and maybe this is just a final thought from me for everybody. When you said the art is created, I know a lot of the podcasts and episodes and things we put out it is art. Even if it's casual conversation, it is still art in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
To me, always heavy on my heart has been the realization that what we say in this world, if I say it to somebody next to me, I say it to somebody next to me. If I put it out on the internet and it's rewatchable 10 years from now, the things that I say have much more permanence. Just like Augustine, who wrote, now 1600 years ago or so, wrote this book that has inspired hundreds of thousands of conversions and hundreds of thousands of people who've reformed their lives and become better people and all of this. And similarly, there have been other authors out there who have written books that have turned men's heart to bitterness or or wickedness of some kind, right? Turn men's hearts from God. To me, very heavy on my heart is the realization that what I say and do in this forum, in a forum like this, has a reverberation or a ripple that's far larger than just me speaking with a friend in my living room. And although there is a beautiful level of intimacy and companionship when you and I have a conversation like this, for example, one-on-one, and plus the chat, obviously, there's still, for me, kind of a reverence for these moments in conversations, because I understand that I feel like, to draw an analogy, like I went through training to be a bartender at one point earlier in my life because I thought it was good money and everything. But in my heart, I couldn't go. I was supposed to go to, after I finished and passed the test and the class and whatever, how to do all the different drinks, I was supposed to go to this nightclub for my night of being shadowed and training so that I could get my official license and then get hired anywhere. But when I thought of walking into the bar, I never did. I never finished it, because when I thought of walking into the bar, I knew that I would be an accessory to many things that would be tragedies, whether it was somebody who was a drunk driver who killed somebody 20 minutes after I gave him his last shot, or somebody who cheated on his wife because of the extra drink that I gave him.
Or the
Even though it's not in my
on the way
intention,
home, or just
it's
so
like
many
shooting
different
your
ways.
dad in the bush, like we talked about earlier, right? It's not my
Right.
intention, but somehow I have a responsibility.
Right.
And so, kind of similarly, I feel a very real responsibility in conversations like this of just being careful with my words. And so I just encourage everybody who's listening to really be prayerful about the things that you hear me say on this podcast or any other. I don't want to speak for you, Templar, but at least for myself, I just want to encourage you all to be really prayerful about what you hear, because I don't ever want to lead you away or be a cause or an accessory for your heart falling into despair or turning away from God,
Yeah,
or
100.
or anything like that. And so I just encourage you to take my words as the words of a friend who's offering things for you to consider, but take it to the Lord in prayer, and speak to him and ask him to guide your heart, just because I have reverence for your walk with the Lord, and I don't want to influence poorly, God forbid. So
Yeah, no, I feel you on that. Yeah. My kind of go-to is whenever I have a question with something and I'm really not sure, I just try to see how it lines up with the Bible. And then, like that's usually the way I go. And I get that people have different arguments on that, but that's kind of my way to stay forward, It's like that's our guide, like anything we say is us.
yeah. Love you too, Meyer. Love you, Templar.
Yeah, love you too, buddy.
Yeah, you guys are all great. I really appreciate all of you being here, and it's always a blast. So, all right, brother.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, sir.
Right
Thanks
back
for your
at you,
time this
buddy.
evening, and thank you everybody for watching. Don't forget, phoneboothpodcast.substack.com.
Yeah, thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you very much.
And if you pray for me, please.
Yeah,
Pray
that
for
too.
us. So, all right, God bless, guys. Good night.